have the
business?
wellness people go because they're here. You don't wanna keep them.
Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, January 23rd, 2014. If we could all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will open the meeting with the chair.
Barbie,
Yes.
could we do a moment of silence for Mr. Coach Lewinsky?
Sure.
Would that be
of
something
course.
we could do?
Sure. We would like to just say have a moment of silence in honor of varsity basketball coach, Coach Rowinski. Our prayers are with his family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very sorry for the loss.
It's a big loss
It's a
to
big
our
loss.
district, yes.
Yes, our whole community.
Okay, to open up the meeting, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes of January 9th, 2014, safety minutes of January 16th, 2014, governance minutes of November 14th, 2013, and acceptance of warrants number 29V14, number 30P14, and number 32P14.
So moved. Second.
Just discussion.
Any questions?
On the meeting minutes safety subcommittee, school reports, Pearlie, the pre-K parents continue to require direction with dismissal pickup protocols in order to keep students safe. Can someone just elaborate on that? I'm just not sure.
Margaret, would you like to do that?
The pre-K dismisses at 3 o'clock, and the routine is that they would drive through, and they do stay in their car, the teachers bring the children out to the car, and then the parent gets out to walk with the child. But we're noticing that off and on, some parents are parking, they get out of their car to walk over to get their children, and then many will drive past the line, to try to fill in. And again, some of it is when you're a pre-K parent, you're new to the system. So they don't, they're brand new and they don't know the procedure. So and plus we have new teachers who also maybe are not quite as confident in asking parents to follow those procedures. So sometimes, and if the weather's bad, we notice that, and parents, will email me to say that they notice people will park and, take their child and run across, and, it's a safety hazard. So I'm, reminding parents, please follow the procedure and, stay in your car and don't wait till the teacher asks you to pull up. Don't park and get out and then cross your children in front of the traffic. So, it's just something that we need to, I don't know if there's anything to be done, or we just continue to reiterate.
So it's not the current site design and the cones and all of that?
It's not the current design, but I'm not a traffic person. I don't know if there's another way to design the traffic, or, I really don't know what else to do, to be perfectly honest, because it just, if someone is not right there, again, parents don't mean to be unsafe, they just are trying to get their child, but it's difficult.
I just think for the board, I think the safety issue over there, I think it's an issue that we should take up and talk about a little bit more seriously, and because I think there are some site issues there that need correction. And I don't put it on the agenda for later or whatever, another time to talk about, but I think it's important.
But we basically need parents to stay in the pickup line?
We don't
Is that-
Well, the procedure would be to stay in the line and then wait for
Not to
pull
park.
up as far as you can,
And go get
stay
your
in
child.
the car,
Stay in the
to
car.
wait for the teacher to bring the
Stay
child
in
out
the
to the
line.
car. Someone suggested having a numbered system like Pembroke, but it doesn't, that's really not the issue. The issue is parents who might park And then, you know, and often they're parking in even staff parking, so it's not as if they're parking on a peripheral, they'll park like right in the middle of the lot.
Right, so they're walking
And they're
into the
crossing
parking lot
traffic.
right, instead of walking on sideway.
Well, they have
They
to,
should stay in the
cross
car.
over.
Yeah,
Right.
They have to
Right.
cross through that
If they stay
line.
in the car and follow the path, they'll be
Right.
fine.
Right, but if they parked off, like on a street, out of the parking lot,
Yeah.
then they could walk and get their child.
Exactly,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Walking on a
Problem is-
crosswalk,
Yes.
on a sidewalk,
Right,
But
not
that's
through
not
the parking
preferred.
lot.
right, but it's coming
No.
into the parking lot and
Yeah, it's the
parking in
parking
the
lot,
middle,
right.
you know, in a space, it's kind of
That's
in
the
the middle of the
problem.
lot. That's one of the problems, and it's driving around the cars that are in line to try to fill in a space.
Right, God, yeah.
Again, thinking they're trying to help, but it doesn't help because it's just not safe. You know, if you have people who are, you know, bringing out their child and a car is coming around, you know, it's just not safe.
I don't think there's ever gonna be an ideal situation there.
I agree.
But the way you do it now, I think is better, being a preschool parent years ago that had to park far away and,
Outside,
you know,
yeah.
whether it was snow, rain, whatever, you had to walk up and get your child. It seems to me to be much easier to sit in your car like at Pembroke and have the
Right,
kids delivered
Right,
to you. Just be a little patient.
right, and we just have to, you know, really just keep reiterating. And again, you know, new teachers that maybe have more of a difficult time being firm with parents to say, you can't do that. You know, someone said, oh, Mrs. White was right out there.
Yeah.
Stay in your car, don't pull in front, but she's not here.
What time is that? I'll go out there.
3 o'clock
Be
car,
careful, she'll
3
take you
o'clock.
up.
Okay, so, do you have any other questions about that?
No, that's, no, that's
Okay, so, all in favor?
it. Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Mary Beth isn't here. We have the presence of Ryan Bahar. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, right.
Thank you for having me. All right, so it's been a busy time of year at the middle high school, especially because we're transitioning from first semester to second semester. So we're having our midterm exams to assess how much we've learned in the semester. And it's just stressful because for freshmen and some eighth graders, it's their first time taking midterm exams. So it's really important for them to understand the importance of this, especially as they go to college. So our teachers are just trying to tell them to study, but not to like get no sleep or anything, because you still need to have healthy habits. What's coming up after midterms is the musical Once Upon a Mattress is going to be premiering the 6th, and then there will be shows on the 7th and the 8th of February. And from what I've seen and from the people I've talked to, it's going to be really awesome. It's based on the fairy tale, The Princess and the Pea. Yeah, and it takes place in a castle, and there's a lot of drama with like the queen and her son who's looking for a princess. So it's bound to be really good, and some of the lines I've heard are incredibly funny, so I'm really looking forward to going to see that. At that, the Once Upon a Mattress, the student council will be selling carnations for the members of the cast, which we do every year, and we usually make a good amount of money from that, so that's good. And then February goes by really fast because of February break, and then in March we're going to have the blood drive sponsored by the student council. We're going to have Frolic, which is the freshman-sophomore version of prom, the semi-formal. And then there will be induction for NHS members. As for sports, we've had a very good winter season so far. We unfortunately have had the loss of varsity basketball coach Mike Rowinski. But the boys basketball players have really been dealing well with it, and this season is one of their best in a while, which is really incredible to see how much they've pulled through. The record right now is, I think, 9-2 or 9-1. So that is awesome, because previous years we've had a majority of losses or ties and not wins. So they're really excited, and going to the games is really fun because the Blue Crew, which is like the fans from the high school, go pretty wild. Girls basketball is working extremely hard. Unfortunately, they have 3 wins and 9 losses, which isn't too bad, but they're really working hard, and everyone's proud of them. Wrestling is doing very well. They have 9 wins, 4 losses, and a tie. And then hockey has a majority of wins as well. So we're really proud of our sports, and the season's starting to wind down a bit. So next comes playoffs and state competitions. So sports teams are getting excited. recently, in terms of clubs, DECA, which is a club focused for students interested in marketing and who want to pursue business when they're older, they had a district competition, and over 30 people out of the 40, 50 or so people qualified for the state competition in March, which is a 3-day competition held in Boston. And so everyone's very excited about that as well. And then the NHS just finished up its coat drive. What it did was, it was a Coats for Kids drive, which Anton's Cleaners in Newburyport, if you've heard of it, they have this drive throughout all of December and a good amount of January. And they accept coats, winter garments of all sizes, and they donate all of them to charity and to families who do not have the money to pay for those essential clothes to keep them warm. And we raised over 200 coats, which is very exciting because that's probably 50, 70 or so families who will have coats to wear in the winter. So we were pretty excited about that as well.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's what's been going on in the high school. It's been pretty busy because of midterms, but
Sounds it.
yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone here from the public that would like to make a comment on anything not on the agenda this evening? Okay,
You said not,
on the agenda. You know, I asked Laura that tonight.
No, I think it's in the policy, it's on the agenda.
On the agenda.
Yeah, and then when I said that last time, I thought you had said not on the agenda.
No, no.
I was gonna ask you guys that.
You got two
Okay.
experienced people, right?
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the Wellness Committee report.
Come on up.
Come on up, ladies.
So we got Mary Beth Doherty and Heather Torrey. Thanks for coming out tonight in this cold weather.
I'm Mary Beth Dory, the school nurse at Georgetown Middle High School. And this is Heather. Yeah, you know most, yeah. So we reconvened with the Health and Wellness Committee last Tuesday, and several of the school committee members were there, I'm noticing. That was great, great representation. And the focus was really on meeting Heather and her vision for the cafeterias. And then also the Health and Wellness Fair, which we're hoping to host on April 5th at Pembroke School. And we've already got about 10 or 11 vendors that are going to come, which is exciting.
good.
And the meeting the other night was great. There was a lot of enthusiasm for it, and we were very heartened by that.
It's a great idea.
So, yes.
Is that like national, is that April 5th, is that connected to like a National Wellness Week or anything?
No, the pancake breakfast is being hosted that same day
Oh.
at Pembroke. There'll be low-fat pancakes.
Is there such a
I'm afraid not.
Whole wheat or
I
something
helped
else.
you out, it's not low fat.
So no, so we're hoping that will be the draw to get
Nice.
people in.
I hear that's always very successful.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
heard that too. And I guess years ago, they used to do the wellness fair at the same time,
Oh,
like 10 years
okay.
ago or so. So,
Makes sense.
yeah.
That's a lot of families, not just, you know, the
Right.
Thanksgiving Day is the seniors, but this
Oh, the
this is
yeah,
the
it's-
pancake breakfast is families.
Good.
Right, yeah.
And these vendors are gonna be here for the interest of the entire community,
The
to
entire community.
benefit.
Yeah, we're trying to get
Community
things
and-
from all spectrums, so, of all interests. And if you have any, concerns or any ideas, just please pass them on.
Or know of anybody who's interested in joining
Yeah.
the e-blast. I'm sure most of you have seen, if
Mhm.
you've seen your emails, I sent out a group email, so hopefully we'll be able to communicate. Actually, I don't think I sent it to you, Carol.
Yeah, I didn't
I'm
see it.
sorry.
We'll CC you.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We could-
I'll send it to you later.
That's okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So how many people are you looking to have on this committee? Like, do you wanna keep it?
Health
like-
and Wellness Committee?
Yeah.
We had about 20, I think, at the meeting. Is that about right? Yeah.
we had
Is it that many?
15, 20?
Wow, that's
What
good though.
We did, I know, it was,
It was
because
a lot.
Because it was in the
it was
afternoon.
overflow, in fact, it
Right.
Great to
overflowed
see
that
everyone
room,
there.
yeah, so, I'd say 15 to 20 is a good number, probably, you know.
We managed to stay on track as far as the agenda goes, so.
Yeah,
We didn't.
we did,
Full
got
enough,
out at
yeah.
4:15, yeah. So, but we'd welcome any interest, anybody that's interested. We have 4 students on it,
Oh, great.
yeah, from the high school, 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores, and several parents and administrators, and, yeah, so it's
Very
good.
exciting.
Yeah.
It's a nice balance.
That's good, no, that's
Yes.
great.
Nice balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good to hear the kids, you know, what they have to say too about different things.
Yeah, it will be, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it goes on.
So your next meeting is,
The 25th of February.
and you're gonna keep it in the afternoon, you're gonna keep it like after school
It
hours?
seemed to work
Right.
right now, yeah. Yeah, 3 to 4:15, so
Yeah, it's good to keep the time,
consistent.
you know, the
yeah.
end time too on it, which sometimes they can.
We had originally planned to do the third Tuesday every month, but then we've got February and April break that fall during the third.
Right.
So
So you have to change it.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have to switch it around, but
Okay,
I
so
think the time frame works.
February 25th, and you're gonna do 3:00,
Yeah, 3 to 4:15 is
and
what
at the high school in the.
high school library now it's going to
Library.
be, yeah.
That's a better space.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Room to
More
spread
room,
out.
yeah.
Number of
Yeah.
people, yeah.
Good.
And at the fair, the different kinds of tables and people who will be there to give out information or maybe sell some fun products.
Yeah, mostly,
They'll be there for nutrition, anti-bullying, dental, blood pressure screening,
Yeah.
Lyme prevention, stretching, relaxation, BMI screening, skin screening, water intake, tobacco cessation, helmet safety, MRSA safety,
yeah.
anti-drug,
Did you say MRSA?
That,
MRSA,
it's
somebody.
a staph infection, yeah.
Yeah.
Staph
Yeah.
infection.
But that's
Just,
not,
you know,
that's
to
not
educate.
set in stone yet, but,
Right, but these
Yeah,
are just
so these are
categories,
ideas
these
we
are
have, yeah.
categories of
Yeah.
the types of, kind of information that will be
Mhm.
out there.
great.
blood, yeah.
Fitness, back safety, and safe driving.
That's what
that's-
you're looking to bring in.
Yeah, so that's a wide
Covers, yeah, a
variety,
wide
covers a
spectrum.
lot of interests, yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
There'll be
That's
two
what-
people with massage chairs too. So there'll be a blood pressure.
There you go.
Blood pressure.
Blood
If your
pressure's
blood
up,
pressure's
sit in the
high, you go
chair.
to the massage
Yeah.
chair.
No, I think that's great, and I do think planning around the pancake breakfast is a great idea,
Mhm.
Yeah,
so that's
Get a
good.
crowd.
yeah.
So-
Everyone can feel guilty about what they ate.
I know.
after.
That's right.
They'll go to the fair first.
No, I should have asked Brian this earlier, but the blood drive that you talked about, can parents of students go, or is it just the students?
I'm not quite sure, but I think it's just the students.
Okay,
I'm
and they
not
don't need, like,
exactly
do
sure.
they need parental,
Yeah, I think if they're
Signature.
16 or under, there are certain regulations. People have to be of a certain weight to be able to
Right.
donate blood, of course. But I think if you're 16 or younger or something, you do have to have parental consent.
okay.
Yeah. We usually have a
Okay.
fair amount of students participating every
Really?
year. Yeah, we don't have trouble finding people to do it. And I mean, I personally am a little scared of doing it, but I think this year I'll do it. But it's good that there are students who are willing to do that because
Yeah,
it's
it
very
is.
beneficial. So
It is.
it's awesome.
Can staff members donate blood, or is it just it's just students?
It's usually students, yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I don't think they turn people away though, but
They won't.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be like, no, you can't donate blood. Like,
Yeah.
but it's usually just the students who choose to partake in it. It's during the school days, during school hours. So that might be a reason why some staff don't participate in it, and students can get out of classes to
yeah, that might be.
do it. So.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
It's hard for the teacher to get off the class.
Exactly. They can't just walk out of class
Right.
and donate blood. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good, okay. All right, does anybody have any questions?
I just want, are we still discussing doing the youth risk behavior survey
Yes,
this
we
year?
are, but that's still undergoing. There's some conversations about that
About
still.
which one
Yeah, so
and
that,
all
I think
that,
maybe
yeah.
next meeting we'll have more
Yeah, there are a
information.
number of different survey instruments that
Right.
we need to
Yeah.
Yeah,
look at.
yeah, that makes sense.
But we did talk about that as
So
well,
that would
but
be
it's,
something we'd like to try to do this year.
yeah, but we have to find which,
I think we did it 3 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yep. When I was in eighth grade, I remember taking. I remember filling it out. It was so long. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, it's
Wow.
time to.
So 4
to-
years, that's definitely
been
time
4
to do
years,
it
yeah.
again.
It is, that's the longest you can go and have it, there still be a statistical correlation.
Right,
Right.
so how long does it take for the results? Once it's given, do we get the results within a few weeks, or?
It can take a while, you can get, you know, preliminary results, but then
Right.
there's a data analysis process that
Right,
goes
right.
through and.
Okay,
It was
and
a few
then
months,
you
wasn't
wanna-
it, Pam?
Yeah, yes, and then, you know,
Then
yeah,
you
so
have
there
to-
is a process.
Yeah.
And it would probably, so if you had a spring survey, it would probably be available, you know, for the public to see the results more in the fall.
Yeah.
Just because
Oh, wow.
you would give it to the administration.
Yeah,
first
everybody,
to
right.
come up
wanna
with an
analyze
action
it.
plan, but then you'd also want, you know, community input. It's a process.
Right. So you'd be thinking about doing it in the spring?
Yeah, but you're gonna talk about the
Gotta pick the
instrument first.
instrument
Yeah,
first, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Well, I wanna thank these two ladies for
I
stepping
know, for taking
forward.
up.
You know, the wellness committee used to be led by Kathy Riccio, who was the head
She's here
nurse, and she did an awesome job. And then when Kathy left, it was difficult to find somebody, and, you know, these guys will do a much better job because they're practitioners, you know, it's their field. So I'm really excited, and I can't thank them enough, cause you know, I was doing it, and I just really didn't have time to do justice to it, so this is great, that both of these women, especially Heather in her first year, and, you know, Mary Beth has a full plate, you know, taking it on, you know, I'm very grateful, and obviously you can see the first meeting was very successful, they're very committed to it, and it'll go nowhere but good, you know, so thank you ladies very much.
Yeah, thank
No,
you
it
for all
is,
your
it's
support,
a-
too. Yeah.
It's a great committee, and I'm glad to see that you,
And I think we
Taking
have
it on, I
them,
appreciate
think
it.
we have them scheduled to come to another meeting in a few months, a
I'll
couple
send you
months.
the schedule.
Okay, yeah.
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 So they'll have more to report.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ladies.
thanks so
Appreciate it.
much, good luck.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I wanted to, ask Dr. Straight, Dr. Straight, is it okay if we move the, turf
Oh, absolutely.
agenda item up before you? Okay, thank you.
Come on up, Lindsay.
Okay,
So,
yeah, first.
this is Lindsay Barbie, who is the project
Engineer.
engineer for the turf field project. Lindsay works for Gale and Associates, and she's been very busy looking at planning design. One of the major milestones that she has to hit is to stay on target for April start, if we can, with a conclusion in July, is to go before the Conservation Commission with a notice of intent, because it involves, which I'll let her explain, it involves some encroachment in the wetlands area in the area. So it requires conservation to give its stamp of approval for the planning. So, one of the things that came up this week is, the question of who signs off. Because Lindsay, in order to meet the timeline with CONCOM, in order to have it reviewed in the month of February, January, February, which is the timeline, it has to get the appropriate signatures. So the question was, who signs? Who's responsible? Is the school committee responsible? Is the town responsible? Who signs? And based on the discussions we had, the town, and you've heard Mike Farrell say it before, and you've signed off on other things related to the turf project, that because it's on school property, it sort of falls within the bailiwick of the school committee. So, in order for Lindsay to submit it on time, she needs Barbie's signature and my signature apparently, and her signature. And this morning was the deadline for her to submit it in order to get it on the agenda. So knowing we had a meeting today would have been ideal to have known ahead of time, but it's been sort of unfolding in the last couple of days. So in order to, have a chance as a school committee to hear what's in the, basically get the 30,000-foot view of what's going into this notice of intent, and then Lindsay can talk a little bit about where the project is right now, just for your information. And then, even though we had to sign off today so she could submit it, there's a 3-week window apparently where changes could be made. So if you as a school committee felt that there were some things that you were not either happy with or felt needed to be adjusted or amended, then there's a little bit window of time in order to have that done. So I apologize for coming up today, and Lindsay's been scrambling to get it all done and make sure it passes muster with everybody needs to look at it. And thankfully, we had a meeting tonight, so we could, and I understand it is a squished timeline, it's not optimal, but I think it's the only way we could actually make the timeline work. So if we can just turn it over to Lindsay. But before we do that, are there specific things that members of the committee wanna know.
Well, I would just like to ask you, what is the process if we as a committee have questions that you then go, since you've already filed the appropriate paperwork? What is so we have a 3-week window.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, if we have issues tonight, that we're gonna get them to you right away, but is the process of just going to CONCOM pretty simple?
Right, so basically, the conservation deadline is based on when their hearings are. So the Conservation Commission hears next on February 6th. So you have to get basically this form in, which is the notice of intent form. This is a Mass DEP form that the Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over. And then also the local Georgetown wetland bylaw. You have to get these forms in 2 weeks in advance so that they can get you onto the meeting agenda. And then basically this package here is stormwater management report, which is basically all the calculations that go into the drainage system and the grading and the design of the project. So you have to get this stuff into them ahead of time so they can know what the project is about and kind of review it before their meeting date. But I met with the commission agent, Steve, I can't pronounce his last name.
Chomsky.
I met with him a few weeks ago in the schematic design of the project, and he basically said that if we submit something to get on the agenda, we have until 2 weeks when the hearing is, and if there's substantial changes, I'll have to go to him and tell him that there's substantial changes, and if he needs more review time, that would be something I'd have to ask him. But I don't foresee, it's basically the design plans and drainage calculations and all that, that's within the areas of their jurisdiction, which are certain buffer zones from the wetland area. So based on the scope of the project, they'll just be reviewing those sorts of things and then ask us questions at the hearing. So basically, you guys know the forms that were submitted today have to be signed by the applicant and the property owner, and then the representative, which is me. So that's kind of what we're trying to just get settled out here. So basically, what I was hoping is I could leave you with these are the design plans, basically at this level, and then the notice of intent and the application that goes along with it. Which, like I said, this is mostly calculations and maps and things like that. And then these are the actual applications. If there was an issue, I would talk to Steve and see if what he would need, depending on what the issue is, I guess. But basically, if there's minor revisions that they may or may not matter as it relates to the notice of intent, because it's only certain things within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, which is only certain areas adjacent to the wetlands. So it would certainly depend what your comments were, but I think we could get it figured out with Steve before the hearing date of February 6th.
Okay.
So could you just give a few highlights of
Yeah,
what's
sure.
in the?
Yep. So the project basically is at the middle high school where the existing baseball field is and the multipurpose field in the outfield. It's right along Penn Brook, which is why we're filing with the Conservation Commission. And basically it's going to be a new synthetic turf field, so replacing the grass with a stone base layer and a synthetic turf carpet on top.
Do you have a plan to show the
I
committee?
do, yeah. I didn't know how much detail you guys would.
Well, just so
Yeah.
you can point to the
Sure.
general area.
Yep.
I'm gonna hold it for you. Okay.
So this is the existing site with the new improvements shown on it. Basically, this is the parking lot, the existing parking lot when you pull in off from Winter Street. The baseball field, the backstop is in here right now, in the same configuration that we're showing the new field. And Pembroke runs along this way. The high school building is over here. So basically, the improvements are to replace the field in its existing location, but with synthetic turf, so that the uses can be not as detrimental to the condition of the facility. Basically, the synthetic turf is more durable, to weather resistant. There won't have to be the maintenance procedures that there are now, and it can have an unlimited number of uses, so that the youth groups and the school groups and everyone can use it without really wearing down the condition. So there's going to be basically a fence around the entire synthetic turf field area, a walkway, some parking renovations, stairs from the school, and this is the baseball dugout area. There'll be a large retaining wall in that big slope that's there today, so we pull back that slope a little bit and then build the improvements into the slope a bit. There's player seating and spectator seating along this side here. And then this side of the field is basically open, grassed area, where probably spectators can watch from. There'll also be temporary seating potentially in the future. And there's also athletic lighting for the project. That's basically the scope, obviously with some drainage and grading and different technical details beyond that. So basically
What's the impact on the parking lot?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yep, so basically,
It's better than what I
It's
remember seeing a
minimal.
previous version,
Yep.
which, that looks better than.
yeah, so before, if you can kind of envision this, right now, the way the field is aligned and this line here, the parking lot is shifted a different way, so we're basically just, cutting a portion of the parking lot out and adding it over here so that we line up the parking lot so it's more parallel with the lines of the field.
Okay.
So it's about maybe a spot less than, one parking stall less than what you have there
Just
today.
one?
Right,
big
so,
No, it's
Okay.
not.
so it's not significant. There's not many spaces now, and it's reconfigured so that it's a little bit better. We're also trying to add, obviously, the Conservation Commission cares about the Penn Brook here. So we're obviously trying to add a little buffer to that area to help them with the water quality and what's running off into Penn Brook.
So that is, Lindsay, that's right behind the existing tower.
The
correct?
tower is right here.
But, so the brook
It's right
though is
behind,
right
yep.
behind it.
And it runs the
The other side
whole,
of the
the whole
fence.
length, that's right. And so at this, where the parking lot currently goes, if you can, remember, the parking goes right up to the edge of that slope. So we're gonna cut some of that pavement back, and that will also be an improvement to that water, the water quality going into Pembroke. And then, so it's basically just, seal coating, which adding another layer sort of bituminous pavement, and restriping the parking lot. It's not pulling up the entire pavement or anything like that, it's minor improvements, but
Is it pavement or seal coating?
it's going to be seal coating, most of it, and then just this one line of parking is new pavement. So this will be new pavement and then a seal coat on the rest and restriping.
Has there been any accounting for where the other parking space will go?
We haven't really talked about that a lot, no.
Are these plans any different than the ones we saw at the last turf committee meeting?
They're further along as far as the design goes, the concept
There
remains
there were
basically the
things
same.
cut out.
Yeah, there have been things cut out, right.
Such as?
The bleachers.
The bleachers are now removed from the project.
Oh, really?
There were spectator seating, permanent spectator seating along this here, but the budget is such that those have been eliminated from the project now. So the spectator seating areas are mostly on the baseball side, and then there's hope to get temporary seating.
When was that decision made to delete the bleachers?
It was just discussed tonight at the stack meeting.
We've had,
I mean, I don't know, because I haven't been there, but this meeting,
and the last meeting we had, which was last month, looking at the budget numbers, the project was over budget significantly,
Yeah.
so.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But I didn't recall any decisions being made.
Well, on December 16th, when we last met, prior to tonight, that was the last meeting that we had, I know that was the big, remember that was the big question about the bleachers.
yes.
Yeah.
So then you made a revision,
So
which I believe
tonight-
was
so
on
tonight at the
well, I believe
staff
there was a
meeting, she came
revision
in
on
with this.
December 18th,
Right, and then
2 days
tonight,
later.
Right,
Harvey, tonight.
right, the value engineering.
She
that's
came
right.
in with this, and the things that are white are the things that she recommends staying. The things that are yellow were optional, and I think were taken out, right?
Right, so basically, after looking at it
blue
last
things
time,
Was
were
that the one dated
things that
December 18th?
she recommends keeping, even though they were on apparently some kind of drafts lists of what could go.
so after looking at the plans on our December 16th meeting, I was asked to value engineer, see what we
That's
can do for value engineering opportunities. So taking a look at the plans and the cost for everything, we tried to provide an analysis of what we could take out of the project or keep in or cut down to try to get the project more towards the budget that the town and the GAA have. So that value engineering, sort of just like what you have there, this is a more recent one. That was done and sent by email, and then these plans have gone forward basically based on that value engineering.
But in terms, I think what Rob's asking about is a formal vote. There was no formal vote taken.
Right.
The group, apparently that's working, getting together, the stack group, those are suggestions from the stack committee as to how to get the budget down to what can be afforded,
But I was at the last staff committee meeting, not the one tonight.
right?
And there were no decisions made, and we were talking about value engineering, and
That's what
I'm not,
Lindsay brought tonight.
I understand. And I'm not I'm for this project and I'm gonna support it, but, I'm just struggling with the process that we're going through with this. It's decisions are being made with no committee present or half the committee present and showing up tonight and
Well, it's
signatures.
a quorum, Rob. The quorum was there, so they're trying to.
Well, it was a
they're-
quorum, but it was a last-minute meeting called prior to this meeting, and people couldn't make it. So, I mean, that kind of scheduling of meetings is something that should be addressed well beforehand.
Right, well,
So,
that's
the
something that
quorum issue-
you have to address with John, because Pingree's the chair of that committee. So I think that that's a good place to have the discussion about the concerns about communication, and ultimately, the final design will be the school committee's decision.
Well, I guess, now that the plans are being submitted to CONCOM, these plans are pretty well set. And I haven't seen them. And a small group of people, and I understand this discussion belongs in that subcommittee.
Yeah.
However, we're the ones signing off on it. We're the ones responsible for this project, 10, 15 years from now. And we're not part of the process right now.
Well-
I'm speaking for myself.
Well, that's why you're having this meeting tonight, because this is how the plans have evolved. There hasn't been a lot of meetings.
Right, there have been,
Lindsay's just been working toward the end, which was, here's my recommendations, right? It's based
To
on.
fit within your budget.
To fit within the budget. Now, we can determine that the decisions or the recommendations she's making and the staff committee are making are not the right decisions, and that's a discussion that the committee can have, for sure. But that's kinda how we ended up where we were. So when Lindsay's going to conservation, she's gonna talk about that area. Right, unless somebody can figure out pretty quickly how to come up with $350,000 for the bleachers.
Right.
If you look at what's been taken out of here, it's, what's left is the essentials. You gotta have the field, you gotta have the lights, even the lights. There were 6 lights originally designed, 6 light poles and lights originally designed. This project is only gonna allow for 4 of them, with 2 that they're gonna put the
bases will be put
bases in. Because the thinking there is, it's the baseball field, and usually in the summer, when you're playing baseball, it's light till 8 or 9. So the urgency of those lights,
Right.
we've been talking about how can we fundraise for the other 2, and, but they wanna put those in. The real issue became the seating. 'Cause
What
you
is
have
the
to have
cost of those
fencing
2
around
lights?
it. $60,000 apiece.
right, 60,000 apiece, and so there's a little, more cost just to put the infrastructure in, but that would be
Right.
for the total.
Right.
Are you
But the
putting
4
the
lights are
footings
adequate?
in for
Excuse me?
the seating?
No,
they're not.
there's nothing for the permanent seating at this point.
So how would you plan on staging for installing the seating later on with the fields in place and the conservation land all around it?
Temporary or transportable seating is the option that's been discussed, so that they
So a
can be
decision has been made to go with portable
It's
seating?
been discussed. As far as the voting, I
Yeah, there
haven't.
hasn't been any formal
But the
vote.
design doesn't include the option of footing so that you could come back in with bleachers later?
It doesn't have footings in it now. Again, it was a cost, sort of, cost-based.
Wow.
And I've been sort of discussing with the chair, and I'm not sure how the voting has been working, but,
So I do wanna ask, like, what Laureen had asked, because at the December 16th meeting, we just talked about the lighting and the fact that 6, at that time, we said, wow, 6 is going to be needed because we do want it to be used
Right.
as effectively as we can with all the teams that are around. So is 4 lights sufficient?
right, 4 lights would be sufficient for the rectangular multi-use
Okay.
outfield area. The
Yeah.
infield of the baseball wouldn't be lit
Okay,
until those 2 lights were installed.
that's where those other 2 lights are.
Right.
And those are 60,000 each, and has like a time frame been talked about, like how long they think it would take to,
Not in my presence. They haven't talked about how much
No,
fundraising
but
would be.
they've been talking about, maybe that's something, you might go back to CPC in another year and see if they do that, or see if you could get some private donations, somebody that might say, yeah, I'll sponsor, you know, a light or, you know.
But you're saying the importance is reduced, I guess, because of the time
timing.
that they'll be playing.
Right, you definitely wanna have it on the
Until
main
you can fundraise for
field.
them and get them installed.
Right,
So those two would affect baseball.
baseball,
And the 4 lights would be adequate for
all
other
the other
sports on
fields,
that.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I want to follow up, Rob, with what your concern is, but if I'm hearing you correctly. If the footings for the bleachers aren't put in this design plan, is your concern that Conservation Committee will not, at a later date, approve it because it will encroach on the, installing those might, I mean, would either damage the field, the existing turf field, or?
It's potentially that, and it's also potentially short money to today do the construction for concrete footings as part of this application, so that when and if we were to fundraise for the only football field we have, to have some seats that are not portable seats, I don't know where you're gonna move them, that's, to come in after the fact, you've got artificial turf everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't stage things on that.
Yeah,
Because it
yeah.
damages the turf and the compaction,
That's
so on
what,
and
that's,
so forth.
that's what I was concerned about.
So
That was
it,
my question.
it's just it's a small, minor, preemptive coordination effort that I would think typically do for that kind of an issue. But this is all news to me.
Well,
What
there
is
are-
the
there-
difference monetarily for, so we're saying 350,000 for permanent seating versus the transportable? Can you just,
Yeah, the transportables for, that seating was for about 400 seats, I believe, the permanent seating.
yeah,
For 100 and change seats, the transportables are 25,000, something like that.
But they have to be packed up and stored.
So basically, they're permanently on a trailer, if you can picture that, with wheels, and then you basically push a button and they fold out, so you can, they
Yep.
fold up to store wherever. You can move them around to other fields in town, or keep them at one certain field. You can put them on the turf. They're portable.
I think some of the discussion had to do with CONCOM is concerned about anything being put in that area.
Yeah.
So in order to kind of move forward with CONCOM, as long as portable seating might be an option, right? Then I think that was the thinking, is that, unless we were really gonna have the money to put the full bleachers in, then you also have to deal with bathrooms. When you have full seating, you have to put in,
6.
what did we decided we needed
Thought it was
four,
6.
Yeah, it was
four or
6 or
six.
8
Yeah.
restaurants.
Yeah, so,
Which
then
is
and then the
costly.
question is, where do you put the bathrooms? So the other thinking is, well, then you'd have to put it in the parking lot, which would potentially affect your, so it's not, there's all kinds of gives and takes, right? It's not as simple as,
Sure, no, it
but,
sounds really
I
complex.
think if money was not an object,
Sure.
because, we went through this, everybody's gone through this list. I think the challenge is that the delta was still between $250,000 and $300,000, which is not easy to come up with.
The
I wanna project
just
was always more expensive than the
Sure.
money that the CPC
Sure.
approved.
But that is the amount that we were, it's not like this figure is coming out of, like, surprise to us, because we did have that figure.
What, the one,
In our-
which one, Barbie, the one
The
point
one,
five?
yes,
Yeah, but we have 1.2 to work with.
right, but we did have that 1.5 that we went to, so it's not a surprise that
No.
we're finding that we are below the 300,000. But are you saying, though, that we're looking to maybe not even think about the permanent seating?
That's what the discussion, most recent discussion is,
Is to not even,
Is
is
to-
to keep with the transportable?
according to what the CONCOM has indicated to Lindsay and other conversations, that's a big deal to them.
To them.
Basically,
So we were at risk of not getting that piece approved regardless, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
it was gonna be harder.
Well, let
Well,
me just
that's the
qualify.
indication that we were given.
Working with Conservation Commission to put 2 footings within their district, or however many would be needed for
Mm-hmm.
the stands, would be a passable.
Yes,
That's just not an
but
issue.
but the long run,
screw
Rob.
that up.
So they're concerned and have always been concerned, at least through Steve. And again, I haven't talked to anybody in the Conservation Committee, but they have expressed concern about putting bleachers of that magnitude right in that location.
I
Permanently.
I just wanna back up. And again, I may, I have to think, when I think about a football field at a high
Mhm.
school, I remember my high school
Yeah.
days and what it was
Yeah.
like to go to the football game, okay, and my
Yeah.
permanent, and bathrooms and everything else.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to imagine this field, which this town wants so desperately,
Right.
because we'll be able to, it was supposed to bring all these benefits to the town. All these different games could be played on this field. We might rent it to other
Right.
districts. We could bring in money. Who plays a game on a field where there's no seating? And a night game
Well, there are.
at that? Like, I don't know. This is what I don't know. Seriously,
No, there-
so people show up.
I mean,
Yeah, there are plenty of, just so it, I've gone to plenty of fields, I'm sure these guys have gone to even more, because, but like Manchester, they don't have, you would bring your own seats.
You just bring your own seats.
To one of their fields, and a couple of others that I've been to, you have to bring your own.
It's just foreign
And I
to
think
me.
it's
I
probably
didn't know
because of
that.
that.
honestly,
Maybe they didn't have the money
if
for
all
seating
things
either.
were, if money was not the object,
Yeah.
we would absolutely want the seating and the bathrooms. We would
Absolutely.
absolutely want
Of
that.
course.
So the discussions, if I can just, the discussions about the seating, we had shown the full portable, full permanent seating with press box,
Right.
and full amenities, and, which that put us over the budget, and then we had talked about a couple times having, putting the footings in this place, so that later they could potentially be installed. And as far as the Conservation Commission goes, I'm not sure if you can see on these, but you see there's 3 dash lines. Here's Pembroke, and then there's 1 dash line here, and here, and here.
Uh-huh.
So the first dash line is the no disturb zone with the Conservation Commission, which means 100 feet from this river you can't disturb, which means no non-vegetation, basically. So we're going to them with a plan that has a lot of disturbance in there, no disturb zones, and the buffer zones of the riverfront. So basically, in talking with them, one of the first meetings we had, he said, obviously, the closest structure you have to the brook is the seating that you're showing here. There's gonna be a lot of questions about that, and that will probably be the biggest bone of contention as far as getting this permitted. That's kind of the one
But
area.
did we not know this before this whole plan? Like,
Did
did we not know that there was this no build zone
Oh,
in
no,
this
we knew that.
area? We
We knew
knew,
that.
and we decided to.
We always thought that
we
was gonna be a
always-
challenge.
Well, it's really the only place to put it, the field, that's the thing. We
Well,
thought if we could work it out.
No, never mind, I'm not gonna say anything.
I think Rob's
You
gonna
talking about
say
the back
it would be
fields?
nice to go up top.
No, that was not what I was
Okay,
gonna say.
okay. So, I don't know.
Not to say it
What were you
wouldn't
gonna
be.
Where,
It's not worth it. It's the, what do they say, the cat's out of the bag?
But if you have specific, you know,
Well, I can't have specifics, cause I haven't even seen the plans yet.
but you're welcome to look at the plans.
I will.
Lindsay's gonna leave them.
I will, but
you
they've
know.
already been submitted, I will.
Well, but as I said, the timing was the timing. Ideally, it would have been perfect. But honestly, Rob, you've been part of the process, and the timeline has always been to go to conservation in January/February.
Yes, so consequently, one backs
So-
into that schedule.
But,
That date of Conservation Commission submission was highlighted, asterisk, big red stamp, right from day one.
yeah,
That's
we knew
right.
that February
We knew
date, I
that.
think with the holidays and everything, but I do
No,
think we could have said, okay, February 6th is the date, backtrack it, we need to meet in here in order to get this
It's up-
done, because I'm just saying, this notice of intent, I'm just concerned as to what the process will be if we do have some, if the committee as a whole
well,
has
I
some
mean,
questions.
with all due respect, I'm not sure, when I look at that, I'm not an expert in wetlands, I have no idea. So I'm gonna trust the expert, you know, as to what, based on where we are with the project right now and the budget. Again, I'd love to put the footings in, I'd love to put the bleachers in, but somebody's gotta be able to show that we have the money to do that.
But beyond that, we have to also be working in a reasonable site. I mean, if it's not, if the Conservation Commission isn't going to approve this,
I think they
This
will approve
far
it,
in,
but what Lindsay's been doing is working with the conservation agent, who's been very, I think, helpful along the way, plus the building inspector, there's been discussions with the building inspector. I mean, Lindsay's been meeting with all the right people to submit it. I think what's happened, it sounds like, is that the timeline didn't work in an optimal manner. So it would have been nice to, in one of the prior meetings, to have had this conversation.
Because the next CONCOM hearing is when?
February 6th.
No, I know,
No,
February
after
sixth,
that,
after
after
that
that.
is,
Oh.
I'm not sure what that date is.
so that would push it off from the July,
Right.
July start date,
See,
obviously,
they
and not
have
have it
trouble
finished.
sometimes getting a quorum at CONCOM.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think the plan called for February, and that always made me nervous, that it was like 1 month in the timeline.
Yeah, it
You know,
doesn't sound
because
like it was
but, and
really
so I
a
think
healthy.
what Lindsay's basically saying is that, based on every indication she has, how it's designed right now is probably, as Rob said, is likely to be supported.
Be supported, but if it's designed in a manner that the committee that's come together to, you know, to negotiate this design hasn't had an opportunity to consider it and weigh in on it, then they're kind of being strong-armed into accepting this design if it's what CONCOM approves. Sounds to me. I mean, when do they
I'm
get
not
to come
sure
back
how
and say,
that-
wait a minute, well, CONCOM approved it, but I didn't approve it, and I'm on this committee, and this committee never took a vote?
Are you talking about the school committee?
No, I'm talking about
The
the,
staff
Staff
committee?
yeah,
Well,
if they haven't
I
had a
mean, I was
vote,
there
if they.
tonight, there were a couple members missing, but, there was pretty strong consensus of the people around that table that this design was the one they wanted to go with, largely driven by the fact that they know there's a finite amount of money. The original plan that Lindsay did, which I think Barbie and Rob and I saw, was quite a bit more elaborate. You know, and it was the field that we all,
The hopes and dreams.
Hopes and dreams,
I get
yeah.
it. I get that we
So
can't always have,
what-
you know,
what,
what we want, but
what the priorities seemed to be in the discussion were the actual field surface, right? The lights, even if all of them couldn't go in, because that's a deal
I
breaker for
remember
GAA.
that. I remember that discussion. I
That's a
remember
deal
that
breaker
discussion.
for
So I'm just
GAA.
concerned about what the
And then there's
issues.
the fencing. The fencing was the other sort of non-negotiable, and then the retaining walls, because they were pushing
Sure, of
back
course,
in.
that's also
So,
safety, so.
if you look at the list, which I'm very happy to make available to everyone,
Yeah.
you know, you'll see the things that were in
Mhm.
and the things that were recommended to come out because of money.
Yeah, I think we all need a copy of this.
Sure. And that was my copy from tonight, but I'd be happy to make it available.
So Stack met tonight,
They did.
and there was a quorum,
I believe there was.
and did they vote?
No, there was no
No.
vote. Well, unless they vote after I left. There was no vote taken. It was really just looking at the plan and the value engineering that Lindsay did. But there was no vote. I think the thing that's at stake here, if I'm hearing Rob, and certainly I would support it myself, is the lack of the permanent bleachers. Pretty much
And that we're
everything
locking
else.
ourselves into that, it sounds like, if I'm not
Yeah,
if-
that's what-
If I'm understanding what you're saying, Rob, we're locking ourselves into having a
Sounds
field
like-
that will never have permanent bleachers.
No, never say never,
yeah.
but what happens
It's just
is
easier
it
to-
gets harder to do it
Yeah.
later than it would be to do it now.
Do you remember, Lindsay, what the cost of putting those
Just the footings.
footings,
I don't have a number, I would feel comfortable.
like, okay, so I don't know if it's in that little list. Is it on that little
No,
list?
it's just the footings weren't
Okay.
separated.
So,
And it's small change compared to everything
So
else.
my question is it possible to go to CONCOM with a plan that, to get them to approve a plan that includes the footings? Even if we later decide we don't have the money to do the footings, but at least have that approved? A plan with so that we have the approval, so at a later date?
That's what
does
they're
that-
doing with the lights, that's how they're
That's
approaching the
right.
lights.
Right, so that's what-
Same concept.
Right.
So the same idea would be, is that
Yep.
not
So
a
I'll get that
reasonable,
Yeah.
a reasonable thing to
so
do?
we just need to figure out
So
what the cost of
basically,
that is.
in the process, Steve has been very helpful. He basically said, you need to get yourself on the agenda, and then, if there's little things you need to add, or if we needed to do an amendment, we could always do that. And it would basically just be a couple sheets that we add into the set, and,
Did you say this, Rob?
and amend it that way.
I mean,
It wouldn't change a
ultimately,
lot of the calculations and all of that at all, so.
if they approve something and we do less than what they approve, that's not a problem.
No,
Right.
you can't
Right?
do something.
You would
that
have to go
We can't
back.
do, we
Can't do
can't do
more.
beyond what they approve,
Right.
but it seems to me that getting the approval for the footings doesn't really cost us anything.
Right.
We get the approval, and then we later go through the full process
Mhm.
of deciding, is that one of the things we cut in order, because of the budgetary restraints, or is there something else?
Right.
But it sounds to me like, at least get approved for the dream project. And then do your negotiation on what to eliminate, so that you know that down the road, you won't have that as much of a struggle, perhaps, to put the addition, is that not a reasonable thing to do?
As long as that doesn't compromise
Yeah,
the.
it doesn't, it's, my only other concern in the back of my mind would be, the feasibility of going back to install them, with the machinery and equipment you need with the field being there, and such a, it's a pretty constrained area actually on all sides, but I would just wanna feel comfortable that we could go back and install them, so that forever you don't have footings there that you can never get around without ruining your turf and put the.
And does the
bleacher
fence
on.
have any impact?
The
'Cause
fence
now
is
you're
within
fencing.
the edge of the turf, so it would be
Oh.
more of the impact on the turf itself to get those bleachers installed onto the footings. But I don't think it would be a significant effort or amendment to our documents that we just submitted today to show a plan of bleacher footings that we would ask to be able to install.
Is there a location for bathroom facilities? Since that's a requirement of putting the permanent seating in?
It would be a requirement with the permanent seating, that would be sort of a separate sort of study we would have to look at, and there'd be a little more to that.
And that wouldn't have anything to do with conservation.
It would, I mean, it would depend, but this round, no,
Trying to be
because.
where it could be, depending on where you're gonna have them, because it could be within 100 feet of those
Right.
dotted dashes.
But I guess
What if they were
with just
underneath
the
the
footings,
bleachers?
that wouldn't be a project you would need right away. I mean, if you installed if you went and actually installed the
All the
seats, that's when
bleachers,
you would
yeah.
need the facilities.
Right, but at our December 16th meeting, I remember we asked you, and you said you had never done this, gone to the state plumbing board, and asked, if we put the bleachers in, can we then put in facilities at a later date?
Right,
So, that's an interesting
right.
idea, but I can't see how they would say yes, if it's a
Right,
requirement.
typically, the only way I ever see that is, you go to the plumbing board and ask for a variance. Basically, as a backup, whenever you install permanent seating, or a grandstand type system, if you have, however many seats you have, you need to assume that it's gonna be 50-50 male, female. And then you have to figure that for every 30, females, you need one toilet facility, and every 60 males, you need one. So it comes out for a 400-seat system to like 6 or 8 restroom facilities for each, for that small size. So citing that and designing that building and tying into all the sanitary services is kind of a whole nother design process. But that's something you have to consider.
Can you put them
That's a lot of
underneath
money.
the bleachers? Like I've seen them.
You can do that in areas where you have,
bleachers.
right, your
Space.
constrained area here, you wouldn't
Yeah.
have,
You couldn't
the
do
slope
that.
of the bleacher wouldn't allow for you the headroom and the size you would need. for
And then I
something
wonder
like
if
that.
CONCOM would
then-
allow that, because the brook is right
Right.
behind it.
Right, that's what I was
So that's
thinking.
the-
Right, they would probably
It's a
be,
little tricky.
closer
Yeah, I
to
think so.
where you have that, small concession type
Concessions,
block
yeah.
building in the lower
In
parking
the
lot.
parking lot, yeah.
Right,
Are you getting rid of the basketball nets? The
yeah, in
bas-
this plan, yeah, to improve the parking lot.
That plan does remove those,
Yeah,
there,
it
there are
does.
2 currently?
There's 4,
Four.
Oh, 4.
Yeah.
there's 2 on
Oh,
each
2
side.
and,
Yeah.
okay, so those will be gone, okay.
But so those bathrooms wouldn't have to take up extra parking spaces?
They probably would.
They probably would.
Yes, yeah. Like I said, citing that bathroom perfectly would be a little bit of a
Yeah.
design.
So is the consensus then that Lindsay would adjust it to put the footings in? And when she submits it for the notice of intent?
Well, I think if we do that, like you had said,
Yeah.
that if we don't do it, we don't do
Yeah.
it, but at least it's in there.
If it keeps
I mean,
our
is,
options
do you
open.
think the support that you're receiving now would change with that
With conservation?
submission?
I think right now we can't make any assumptions because we haven't talked to the commission and they're the ones that make the decision, but, it's basically just, concrete, just like you have concrete for fence footings that are along the entire area there, so I don't think that would be a huge, the only thing that they brought up as an issue, which is something they may ask if we were to do this, is they like the thought of that being, of at least providing them a little bit of a buffer area of just natural lawn with nothing happening there, so it's sort of a filter area, and there's no degradation of the vegetation in that area along Pembroke. So when we had talked about bleachers before, the conservation agent had noted that we should either block them off or try to make it so there's not a lot of wear in that area or use in that
From
area,
foot
walking
traffic,
around
right?
from foot traffic and
Yeah.
things like that, which I'm not sure you can totally eliminate along this edge anyway, but he was concerned about the amount of use of that area, so that might be one thing, but I don't think it's a showstopper necessarily.
I mean, I would support submitting the plan with the footings. The only thing I would ask is that when we make that decision, we're really thoughtful about it, because you're talking about fundraising, $350,000 for bleachers. You said $120,000 for 2 additional lights,
And then the bathroom
and then
facilities.
a 6
And then bathroom.
unit
a
bathroom
building.
facility. That seems very, very significant.
Yes, it does.
And we'd wanna make sure we didn't pay for those footings when we could never achieve
Right.
sort of the dream.
You would also have 20 small concrete piers sticking out along
Well,
that
no,
area.
but my point is that that's a decision, I'll come back to it,
After.
that can be made at a later
Yes,
time.
yes.
It's just that because of the way the timing has worked out here, where we're going to the Conservation Commission, right, before we have a consensus on what it is we want done, why not get their approval on the whole shebang?
Lorraine, may I only comment?
Keep our choices open.
The
Yes.
footings for this, you're talking thousands of dollars versus hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're talking such short change that it's really, in my opinion, not a money issue to put the footings in now. And if you don't use them, you don't use them. And if you don't
Yeah, I don't
do it-
have any idea what footings would cost.
I know, but what
Well,
kind of an
she can-
eyesore
she-
will
What do
they
they
be?
look
Well,
like?
Well,
they-
it's-
and
That
you-
is something we do have to, the eyesore.
But you put it in below the top 12 inches, and then you cover that over. And you
Oh.
have the structure
don't
there,
stick up.
and then you come in later with hardware to raise it up beyond that.
So you don't
So
see
what
them?
would you estimate is the cost drop for footings?
I don't know how many you have, but they're, I don't know how big they are
Yeah,
either,
they're
but
typically
24 inch
yeah, they're typically 24 to 36. They can be round
sonotube.
here, yes, on a
Yeah.
tube, and typically they're raised above grade, but you could probably design it so that they're finished below grade. We've done it in the past where it's basically, if you can picture 3 round cylinders sticking up 2.5 feet from the ground, that there would bolt the connections to them when they come back in. And there's probably 18,
Wow.
18 of those?
something like that. Go back and look at the size of the bleacher we had looked at, but it's kind of a complex of beams beneath that, and they all tie into these piers.
Yeah.
I think you're well under 10,000. That's just my guess.
I would agree with that.
Can
Okay.
we move the question, or? No? Okay.
Huh?
Is it time to move the question, to move the motion?
Are we going to make a motion?
We're going
Yeah,
to.
you-
To go
she
ahead and
needs
do
a-
this, so
she
we're
needs a
going
vote
to
sign off on it.
so is the committee wanting the motion to include the footings for
Yes.
the permanent bleachers? That's how the motion,
I'd like to see that. I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks.
do we have any other questions for Lindsay about the project, or?
At this point.
Okay.
I just have one. This is obviously contingent upon Steve letting us submit another
Mhm.
plan. I don't see that being an issue with him, but we can just submit another plan to him as an addition to our design that was submitted today. I don't think there'll be an
Oh,
issue
right,
with that.
because you gave him all the.
That's right, yep.
Gave it to him.
But I don't think that'll work.
Do you need signatures also for the submittal?
Right, so, so there's the design and the calculations and report that goes with it, but basically, the application itself, there's 2 of them, because Georgetown has a local wetland bylaw, and then there's the state wetland bylaw. And basically, it just describes the project and what resource you're within and the different buffer zones. And then it requires an application from the property owner, which, according to the assessors, it says, Town of Georgetown Public Schools, Superintendent of Public Schools, I think that's what it says. And then also from the applicant, which I wasn't sure if it was the school committee or, I put Barbie down for that.
Okay. Alright, so it's just this one form?
It's,
And then you're gonna give me the one for
it's
just
the
the
local and
town?
the state, that's right, I have both of
Okay.
them here, yeah.
Okay,
If you
this
wanna
one's the state.
just do both of these, I have the full forms.
Okay.
So if you take a vote on that, then there's one other thing about the soil that I want to talk about
Okay.
quickly.
Okay, so help me along with this, motion.
I
Done.
think the committee would, so you're gonna, to approve the submittal of the notice of intent to the Conservation Commission, with the amendment of adding permanent
Footings.
footings.
Footings for
Footings for
permanent
permanent
bleachers,
bleachers.
yeah.
Okay. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to, allow Lindsay Barbie of Gale Associates to proceed with the notice of intent to the Georgetown Conservation Commission, with an amendment of adding, footings for, in the future, possible permanent seating.
It's good.
Second?
So moved.
Who's
Oh, so
moving it?
moved,
You
sorry.
moving
Sure, I'll move it.
Okay, any questions?
it? You need a second? So
Second.
Pam, so Pam made the motion.
I'm
Alana
sorry.
Alana,
second.
second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. And did you say you had you wanted to ask?
Oh. So one of the things that's, I know we've been discussing this at Pembroke at length, but I wanna be sure that we talk about it here. Lindsay has collected, soil, from the location, as part of a digging borings that needed to be done. So now the discussion has to be, given what we know about the Pembroke site, do we wanna test for arsenic and cambium? If we test for arsenic and cambium, which appears to be the right thing to do, in my mind, we just also have to realize that if it tests positive or higher than residential levels, then we will have to, probably DEP might get involved again. Even though it's naturally occurring at Pembroke, they may say it's naturally occurring here, but we will have to develop a plan to protect the workers while they work on the site. And we will also have to figure out what to do with the soil that would be contaminated. So I think the decision we have to make is, are we gonna test? Because she has the soil ready. Now, the problem is we don't really have an estimate on the cost of that yet.
Right.
Lindsay's gonna get some estimates, and then the question's gonna be, okay, now who's gonna pay for it? It really isn't part of the project. It probably does need to be paid for by us. So, we're thinking it's less than 5,
Less than 2.
less than 2.
Less than
So, less than $2,000 to test. Now, that doesn't mean it's the cost, now the cost of the mitigation would be much more significant, but let's take the testing first.
Why is the school district responsible for that?
Because they will say that it's the,
Because of
it's
the
the town,
project.
it's the town project. On
Exactly.
school property, remember how Mike Farrell is very clear, that's why you're all taking all the votes on everything, that it's a town project on school property, and it falls into the purview of the school committee.
But the new Pembroke isn't being paid for by the school district.
No, the new Pembroke mitigation is gonna be paid for out of the project that the voters voted, the amount of money that the voters voted to borrow.
Because there was an amount left over, because
the bid came in 4 million under budget. So that's my understanding of the difference.
I mean,
The-
I think the testing is a wise thing to do, but I don't know why the school district is the one that's put on the tab for it, let alone the discussion of the actual mitigation. I don't, there's no way in heck I would ever support paying for the mitigation costs of that for the
Yeah,
district.
I understand. I don't know, we'd have to get a little more clarification from legal, I think, on what our responsibility would be. But as I said, we do have to test.
Can I just wanna clarify something, so we do the testing, we find out we have an issue, like
Yeah.
we found out at Pembroke.
Yeah.
And then the school is held responsible for mitigating the issue. At that point, when we look at our coffers and say,
Mhm.
no money here,
Mhm.
can we put a stop to this project?
It's a fair question. I don't wanna be
Yeah.
put in the position of where we have to come up with the money.
I mean, I don't want, yeah,
Yeah,
I-
I don't
I
know
think
the
that-
answer. I don't know if that would be something where you would go back to town meeting,
right.
you know, and ask for a warrant on something like
Right.
that. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Can I just back up a little bit on the testing? So the results from the Pembroke were such that it was not an immediate hazard. It was,
Right,
it
it
was
was not
all
an
about
imminent hazard.
long-term exposure.
Right.
Did anybody in the meeting that happened just before this or in the discussions about this, did anybody talk about that approach? I'm not recommending it, but that if this is a long-term exposure issue, why test it? Why, are we gonna test every single
Well, I
project that comes into the district?
That's why I'm discussing it with you here, because, you know, there are some people who feel like, yes, you know, in order to keep everybody safe, we should know what it, you know, what it is, and then other people feel like, well, why would you test? I mean, the bottom line here is,
Right, it's environmental.
it's environmental, and it's probably all over
Naturally
town.
occurring.
Right.
But-
Naturally occurring.
And the issue though of long-term exposure is the risk, not the short-term exposure.
I'm not sure, Rob, because when the test was found, it depends on where it's found. I think if it's in the deep soil or the shallow soil. When it was found in the shallow soil, they said you have to have a health and safety plan,
Because that could be short-term.
because there was some potential.
Right.
So, my understanding is that where you have flexibility in the mitigation, if it's naturally occurring, is you don't have to go down 3 feet and then cover it. I mean, obviously, this project is the solution is
To cover
already
the
there,
turf.
you're covering it.
Right.
So that's not the issue, but it would be the issue of worker safety.
During construction.
Yep, and it would be the issue of, worker safety and disposal of the, I mean, if the
Contaminated
soil
soil.
was not contaminated, then
It's not a
we
problem.
could move it anywhere we wanted in
Right,
town.
but if it's
In fact, they could
contaminated.
probably be useful at the Pembroke Fields with, you know, but,
But this
So
isn't something that we have to vote on tonight. Were you-
no, Lindsay's gonna
Okay.
get us just some costs on, you know, and one thing I might wanna do is ask the guy from Green Seal, cause we're working with him at Pembroke, what his thoughts are on it. But we probably need to take it up at the next meeting. Because the problem's gonna be, we don't want the soil testing to delay the project,
Right.
right? So we may have to talk about it at the
Can we
February
get legal
13th.
advice?
Well, that's what
at
I'll
the next
definitely,
meeting?
and I'll talk to Mike Farrell and, you know,
I think it's really, considering how fast-tracked this all is, I think it's probably a wise idea to, you know, address the issue of who's gonna pay for mitigation if that's required.
mhm.
The school district, should not be paying for the mitigation of it. I don't think.
Well, I'll definitely look into that for sure.
It's a town problem.
Okay. So if Lindsay just gets us some information,
Right, for
and then,
costs.
yeah,
Ernest?
then we could.
Sure.
We could decide. Okay.
Has someone taken meeting minutes tonight? Do you know?
I don't
'Cause
believe
I
so.
usually do that when I'm there.
Yeah, you always do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So there were no minutes tonight.
What time did the meeting start? Was it 6 or
At
6:30?
6.
6, that's what I thought, okay.
Yes, it's- I don't know if they're.
But you were here soon after, it must have got, was it like
Right,
an hour?
I left at 7:20, yeah.
We
And it was
said
over.
garbage.
I'm sure you can ask someone to take them that was present.
Yeah.
I mean, I take minutes for my,
Yeah, I know,
send them out
yeah.
sometimes, but I don't know if they were actual
Someone
minutes
taking
for
them.
the
Yeah,
committee.
Barbie's usually the
Right, yeah.
minute
Okay.
taker.
So so you're gonna leave this with us?
Yep, I'm gonna leave you a copy of this and this, and, these are the two, application
okay.
forms, right? I don't know if you wanna wait on these, or if you wanna sign them, and then we can get them to his office, and then
Well, I think I'm fine with signing them since we did the motion that,
You voted, right.
yeah, for the, yeah.
So-
His
We have-
office is closed tomorrow.
Right,
Right
his
on
office is
Friday.
closed this afternoon.
So we have.
So I have the
there's one there.
Massachusetts.
Which other one do we have to
I
do?
can give you both of these, they're the completed,
Okay.
for both, it's the state and then the local.
Okay, so is this nothing now? Cause you're.
Oh, that's, works if you've already done that one, I could just add
Carol
that.
already
So
did
we just
that.
need the other one that you
Sure.
haven't done. So did you sign it, Barbie?
Yes, and it says
Okay.
representative. Do you need, oh, that's you.
That's
This-
me, yeah.
So this will go to Lindsay.
And that's just, I believe, you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for you,
Perfect,
Lindsay.
thank you.
Well, I appreciate you coming tonight
Yes,
and
thank you.
answering
Well,
all the
thank you, and
questions.
I'm sorry, the communication.
That's
from the
okay.
press.
We appreciate you coming. I was glad we
Yeah,
had a
that's
meeting
something we
tonight.
can certainly
Yes.
discuss.
Thank you.
You have to
You have a
sign
pen,
it.
right? Thank you.
So those, Carol, will be at your office, and we'll have to go and,
We can do that.
we'll each have to,
Um,
this in the office?
Actually, I'm sorry, you don't need to sign that
I was
one.
gonna say, that
one's
one
just
doesn't look
okay,
familiar.
yep.
Can you send a set, can you send a
I
PDF
have
set?
PDFs, yep.
Can you send me a set?
Sure, I sent
Just-
one.
just
I
email-
sent one to
those?
Carol.
Email me a set.
Sure.
Can they,
Have
can we
those?
all see the PDFs? Can,
Yeah.
that would be much
It's about a
easier.
10 megabyte file, if you want me to send it to one person and then, or if you.
Oh, yes.
So send it, just, you sent it to Laura already?
I did, yeah.
Well, then we'll send it to you.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay,
And
thank
then,
you.
I'm going to call, or I'll email Steve tomorrow, just in case, but then I'll call him on Monday to make sure we're okay with this amendment process and.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Okay. Will we
Okay.
should we continue with new business, go on to the school calendar, or do you then wanna go back?
Well, can we just find out how long Donna's anticipating hers?
Sure.
Donna, how long do you anticipate yours going? 15 minutes, 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Then why don't we do that?
You wanna go ahead with?
Yeah, and then we'll just do the
with that?
calendar after that.
Okay,
That's all we have left after, right?
sure,
You doing me now?
sure, come on up.
That way you can have enough time to do the calendar.
This PowerPoint.
Thank you for being patient and letting
Oh,
me
no
come
worries.
A little bit.
Absolutely, that was an important discussion.
So while Donna's getting ready, one of the, as you know from our strategic plan, one of the major strategic initiatives is the response and intervention, RTI. So when Barbie and I were planning the school committee topics for the year, one of the things we wanted to do, and this goes back to something Mike Gilbert said, if you remember, in the summer when we did our retreat, he said you wanna kinda keep track of your goals and what's being done, and just kinda getting status reports along the way. So that's the purpose of why we're talking about the RTI initiative tonight, is to give you an update on where we are.
Right.
Donna has agreed, Donna and Julie, I guess, have both been, and Margaret actually, have been very instrumental in, looking at the RTI. Margaret did extensive work in her previous district with it, and Julie, you know, ties into Julie's department. And then even though it's a regular ed initiative, Donna, is very interested in it because it impacts regular ed and special ed in terms of the way we're going to intervene with students using data. So girls, why don't you come up and give her a little support? Okay, Donna, go for it.
Okay, so in your packet, you have what is outlined as the initial plan I provided for you. And I thought what I could do is put together a little PowerPoint and sort of give you some of the highlights of what the plan says and the initiative that we're trying to do. So, as superintendent said, the response to intervention initiative really is a general education initiative, and much of the implementation of it does take place within the general education classroom. Effectively, what it is a multi-tiered approach of looking at student achievement both academically and behavior-wise to provide students with immediate information, immediate strategies to improve those areas. How do we do that? We take a look at the data that we're gathering. So Julie and I talked to you at maybe a month ago with regards to the map testing that we're doing within the district. And that's one piece of data gathering that we're doing. So that's going to take a look at, give us a baseline of where students are with their reading, writing, and mathematics. We're going to implement that 3 times a year, and that will give us an idea of how students are progressing academically. In addition to that, we'll use the curriculum-based measurements. We'll use other assessments that the district provides or at the different grade levels that they provide so that we can immediately see where students are struggling, who the students are that are struggling, and what we can do to provide some assistance to those students. So why are we doing that? Well, in part, it's part of No Child Left Behind, Individuals with Disabilities Act, and the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. If you consider the Mass tiered system of support, you can see here that, there's multiple layers involved in implementing this whole process. If you look in the center of it, you'll see that it is a 3-tiered approach. So the first tier is the core instruction, and this is what happens every day in every classroom for all of the students. 80% of your children are going to fall into that category for both the academics and the behavioral components of it. If you go to the next piece, where some students may be showing some struggling, whether it's with their ability to utilize their executive function, their behavior, the academics, the reading, writing, mathematics, they might be in Tier 2. And that area is where you're giving them some supplemental assistance, and you're going to go through a method of applying specific instruction in those areas that the data indicates that they have some difficulties in. The hope is the early intervention piece. If you get them early, provide that intervention, that they're going to be successful and eventually move back down to Tier 1.
That is a good, can I just ask you a question when you say that? So that to me means that regardless of the child's grade, if they're first grade or 6th grade, if you are then noticing that the child is exhibiting some type of problem, then it's addressed then.
Exactly.
And then you begin the process of where you get that child help.
Exactly.
And if I'll just jump in.
Sure.
Usually that intervention is identified for a 6 to 8 week period of time. And then throughout that 6 to 8 weeks, maybe once a week or once every other week, you're progress monitoring. So you're continuing to assess. And then at the end of 6 to 8 weeks, you'll look and see, is that progress, sloping where you want it? Then you remove that support and they go back into that core instruction. Or do you keep it going but if you keep it going, you might need to tweak something else in that. And you continue to progress monitor to make sure the child's making progress.
Okay.
Right, so there'll be a problem-solving method that we will utilize to ensure that, we're meeting all of the students' needs. And it starts with defining what is the problem. Let's analyze and understand what the problem is. So you analyze looking at the data from the student, you determine what the interventions are going to be, and then evaluate how that implementation is going. And it's a cycle that happens continually for the students. So as Margaret had stated that, the student may stay in Tier 2. You may find that, the slope of improvement is going in the right direction, but they still need those supplemental implementation pieces. And they can stay in Tier 2 for as long as that needs till they go back to Tier 1. For those students that aren't meeting with that type of success, they would move on to Tier 3, which is more of the intensive programming that we would provide for them. But the same problem-solving application would apply. We would analyze what the problem is, what does the data tell us, what's the implementation, and then evaluate to see how the cycle's going to be. Okay, and it's based on these principles, which are the principles that we were just discussing. All right, so the first step, it's a multi-phased application of developing RTI in the district. And the first step is to establish a district RTI team. Certainly, Dr. DeRoche, Principal Mayor, and myself are going to be part of it. And we're going to look for other elements from all of the schools, from the general education, from the interventionists in math and reading, from some of the special education service providers, adjustment counselors, school psychologists, anybody that would provide some expert information with regard to academics or behavior for students.
And the goal of that team is?
The goal of that team is effectively to start establishing what is RTI going to look at here in the district. You know, what are the implementation pieces that we want to look at? What are some of the data we're going to collect? For example, you know, one discussion that we had, and with the superintendent, of course, was the universal screener, which we ended up choosing the MAP universal screener that we're implementing. So it's sort of putting in place all of those different steps. Yes.
Wouldn't the, you know, what you're looking at be somewhat individual to the student? I mean, who's
Absolutely.
struggling? You're going, yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
There's another
It's-
team, that's why I asked, because it's.
Right, so this will be the first team, and one piece of that will be the consensus building. And part of consensus building is going about to yourself as stakeholders, speaking with the parents, speaking with the different building teams, talking to the general education teachers, pulling everybody that's a stakeholder into the process so that we're all speaking the same language, we all have an understanding of what we're trying to implement within the district and the reason for that. You know, answer all the whys for everybody. Then we would move on to the infrastructure building, and within that level is going into the schools then, and now you're going to develop those school RTI teams. So that's where they're going to start looking at the individual students and analyzing that data. Those teams are going to be looking at the type of fidelity with which the implementation is taking place, whether it's the behavioral components and what those students are receiving, or if people are following accurately
And
the
we're
steps.
not at that stage yet, or we are?
No, that's the next level, so
Okay.
we're at the consensus building
Okay.
stage
I
right
think,
now.
next year there'll be, potential discussions in the budget process about this,
Mhm.
because, you know, one of the things they'll be doing in this process is looking at what we have in place for the supports for tier one, obviously we have teachers. Tier two, most of the time is done by the teacher. But it may be with the assistance of an aide on top of it or something. The tier three is your more specialized, so it may be your special educators, but it may also be reading specialists. Well, we have to look and see, do we have enough reading specialists to be able to do tier three? You know, we have to just look at what our resources are in
Absolutely.
relationship to what we
Yeah.
need, and then make a decision as to whether or not there's things we have to add or change.
And some of the infrastructure building includes how ready are each of the different buildings.
Yeah.
You know, so we have surveys that we can provide, and within each of those buildings, what kind of professional development do we need to have and schedule? What kind of interventions do we need to either purchase, provide training for, utilize in a different manner? So there's different pieces that we have to kind of put together, and yes.
So, but this makes me wonder, when we're getting, sounds to me like we're gonna get very specific information about students who are struggling in our district. And if we discover that we don't have the infrastructure to meet those students' needs, that may result in more out-of-district placement.
And I don't think so. You know,
No,
most of the
it's actually the opposite is what the hope is, because we're coming in early to provide those supports for students. So as soon as we start noticing that maybe the child is struggling in whatever area, that we start scaffolding and putting those
What
supports in
Alana's
place.
asking is, if we don't have those things in place, would that be something that might drive parents to ask for an out-of-district placement? And of course it could, but there are interventions in place, but we just don't know that we have enough of the interventions that we actually need.
And we're already doing some.
Yes.
This is not brand
Right.
new.
Right.
No,
When
this is
we're-
just pulling it together in a district strategy.
Formalized manner.
I mean, we are providing interventions for kids right now, we are,
We're collecting
do
the
have-
data
we are
and progress
collecting
monitoring.
Right,
Yes.
I understand that.
but this will make it a little bit more kind of coordinated.
Generally, we would have the resources. I mean, not.
Well,
you know,
but you
not-
just said, we may identify, like, as we look at
That's
the
right.
budget for next year, that we have these needs.
Right.
And that's what triggered that
Yeah.
question, was if we say, oh, we have a need for a specialist to address the needs of this particular student, and we don't have the money.
That's where we have to make some trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
We'd have to look at, are there certain positions we have now that maybe we don't keep, but we create a different kind of position, That's what we're gonna have to take a look at. Or we may have to assess the needs of each building and then make some shifts
Yeah.
to provide more adequate resources in the places that we determine need the most. So that's all part of the study.
Certainly consolidating two schools may make it easier,
Yep,
right?
that will definitely
Put all
make-
these resources
that
in
will-
one
that will
building.
definitely make
That
it
would be really
easier.
nice, yeah.
Right, and then the final stage, of course, is the implementation phase. And again, this is going to be a multi-year project that we're going to look at. And once we get it implemented, there's going to be continual assessment of, what the RTI teams are doing, what do we need, how do we need to tweak things.
And obviously Donna put together a more extensive, packet of information if you are looking for more information as well.
Thanks. Anybody have any other questions, or, we'll keep you up to date as we're moving along, where we are in the phases and how things are going. All right, great, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you, Donna.
you.
Thank you, Margaret and Julie.
Thank you again for being so patient too.
Oh, not a problem. Good information to hear.
Okay, so I'm going to go back now to new business. And I'm going to, the school calendar, we're gonna talk about that now.
Okay.
This has kept me up for days. Really, I haven't had
It's not
many,
easy.
the last 2 nights I had, it's so confusing. So,
I was very pleased that we got so many responses and we got so, a lot of feedback and a lot of interest from the people, from everyone in the community. Very helpful.
Yep.
It's great.
A lot of
well,
good ideas.
yeah, the points that everybody brought, that was what caused the sleeplessness, because everybody that told me what their opinion was had a great reason for that. So I was like, okay, that sounds great, and then you hear somebody else, and you have to take into consideration so many families' needs and children's needs that, I think that's the big thing right
There's a
now
lot
that
of
we have to
pieces
talk
to the
about.
puzzle.
I have a lot of
Right.
questions that came out of reading all of those letters. So one of the questions, I don't expect you to have these answers, but
Mhm.
just
Well,
so that they're out here.
Yeah.
I noticed I got my first, summer camp sign up. And the first week of camp for this particular camp isn't until sometime in July, which really surprised me because I thought, oh, we're gonna have these conflicts. Now I'll back up. There's another camp my daughter was interested in, and if she was to go to that camp, she would have missed the last week of school.
Right.
But then I noticed this, other camps, so I'm thinking, where do camps get their start dates from? Like, how do they know when to schedule their starting? And I haven't seen all the camps that we could potentially select from. I haven't seen what their schedules are yet, but I've been paying attention with, I get that for the working parents, that lag time between that last week of camp until school starts is an issue.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's an issue that's unique to Georgetown. I think that's an issue for anybody who's raising kids and trying to work with their, and so. The other question that I thought was worth discussing in this meeting was why we can't, or why we don't stack all the professional development into that week before school. I think that's a worthwhile discussion to have in a public forum so that people understand what the logic and the rationale is for the way professional development days are scheduled. And then the third thought that I had, because this idea that Labor Day is sometimes September 7th and sometimes it's September 1st, and having a policy that says we will always start before Labor Day or always start after Labor Day may not be the most, may not be the wisest decision to make. That perhaps we should say, given the way the state law works in Massachusetts, that we cannot have school in July, and given that we live in an area where we might have to accommodate in some years for snow days and some years we would not have to accommodate, could we come up with a policy that says we will plan each year a school calendar so that school ends on June 10th or June 15th, with the recognition that it may go beyond that, and that if we then count backwards, that may mean some years will start before Labor Day and some yours will start after Labor Day, because our intention is to be out of school at this time. So, those are the three things
Okay.
4 things
So I
that
don't know
thought I
where
would.
the camps get their dates, but my guess is that most schools are out somewhere around the 20th. So it's generally the last week in June that they feel it's safe to start. So I think that's why they start in June, when they start in June. In terms of the PD, basically the way PD's been done, the way it's been done is the first day before the kids come is a back to school,
Sure.
and we have been doing some PD, but mostly it's a district gathering, school-based meetings, district level meetings, like Donna meets with her special ed staff. We do some required trainings that we're required, our sexual harassment policy, those kind of trainings that we have to sign off on. And then teachers do have a little bit of time to work in their rooms. That's generally, and then the other three, we have spread them out in the past because the nature of the professional development has been such that you do the training and then the teachers work with it, and then you do the next training, and then the teachers work with it, and then you do the next training. So, that's why it's been done that way. I think there are years when, depending on the training, like this year, we might have been able to argue that, because we're doing all the teacher evaluation training, that we could have done that for the 3 days before school opened. But if I think about the way the training worked, we broke it up in ways that made sense. So when we did the SMART goals, the teachers then had time to do the SMART goals.
Yes.
Then the next one was the educator plan, then they had time to do the educator plan. So it
I mean,
was,
I just-
so that's, it's really the nature of, the training tends to be set up in ways that go throughout the year.
Well,
for
and I
that
wanted to
reason.
say, I mean, I wanted to comment on that. If you think about adult learning and you think about taking people who have demanding jobs and you're trying to bring them up to speed, if you toss a bunch of information at them at once, it's
Before
not going to
school, when
stick.
everybody's worried about
It's not going to
getting their
stick.
rooms
If you
ready.
really want the professional development to be meaningful, you have to be able, particularly I think in the world of education, you have to be able to tie it to your practice. And you have to be able to, then go into the classroom, try it, stumble, fall, and then step back and have the opportunity to then reflect, discuss what went right, what went wrong. Oh, did I understand that right? Did I miss it? What about in this special case when I have this kind of a classroom going on? So that stacking the professional development at the beginning of the school year may mean we lose some of the effectiveness of that professional development. And that's, I think your point about how it played out this year speaks to, that's how I understood why professional development for teachers was staggered throughout the school
Right.
year. It seemed to me
And
that,
we try to have it done usually by January. January be the last one, except this
Sure.
year, obviously, because we had so many initiatives, we did the half
Sure.
days. But that being said, it's like better to front end it in the first part of the year so that
Sure.
you actually have time to work with it over the course
Sure.
of the year. And then the schools have various committees that reinforce what that training has been.
And can I
Just
just
for
say,
the-
with a completely different perspective, about having at least two full professional days in the fall to make those long weekends, that juniors and seniors, I know parents who don't have juniors and seniors yet may not be thinking about this, but it's an ideal time to go do a college visit. Because it's difficult to visit colleges in the summer, the students really aren't there, and if you do it on a holiday, everybody in the world is gonna be there, but the professional days are days when things are pretty normal on a college campus, and the fall is a good time to have that. So, I mean, I know it's only 2 grades out of many, but that would still be affecting, over 200 students.
So we're voting tonight on just the start date,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
That's just the
That's
start
right.
date.
That's gonna be where you're going
Okay.
tonight.
And
But
the only
just for the
question.
upcoming school year.
Correct. And I think the only question I had, is there any difference to the district's budget, one way or the other?
In terms of when we start?
Yeah.
And then, no.
Doesn't affect the
No.
money issue at all?
Teachers are paid for 184 days regardless of when it starts. We work others work the June 30th to July 1, so
Okay.
no budget impact. And back to Alana's final point, is there any reason why the committee couldn't continue with the approach it's been taking, which is if it's usually September 1, 2, or 3, it's usually after Labor Day.
Right.
If it's, 4, 5, 6, or 4, even 4 is iffy, but 5, 6, 7, then it's been before. And I think the number of people have talked to me said we just would rather have it be one or the other, just so we can plan. But if you think about it being September 1 this year, and you start backing that out, the new teacher orientation day ends up being somewhere around August 20th,
camps are,
which is really, really early,
it's
so.
really early.
I think it's, what I read from all the emails, the consensus, there wasn't consensus on before or
No,
after.
there wasn't consensus.
But there was on getting out earlier in June.
Right. That's the
That's-
one
that's
thing
what-
That I
that's-
saw
we can all
over and
agree
over
on,
and over.
is that everybody wants
So-
to get out.
Yeah, that's
earlier
why
in
I'm
June.
saying, if we say our intention is to be done with school by June 10th, but we might go to June 15th if we have a lot of snow days, that's where we work from. And then we just back up, and whatever the start date is so that we're out by June 10th, or we're out by June 12th or 15th, or whatever the date is that we decide on.
Now,
To
can
me,
I-
that seems just that seems to reflect what you,
That's the
Yeah.
only consensus
yeah,
I observed from all the emails I
yeah.
Now, we do have a couple of people here from the
Yep.
audience. We'd love to hear you since
with
you've been
experience
patient.
on school
Yes,
calendars.
you've been
Do you wanna
waiting quite a while.
tell us what,
I just have
We're
a
thinking.
few short pages.
Yeah, come on up.
But I just read
Come on up here. Just a few short pages,
To read?
based on her experience.
It's nice to sit on the other side, I have to
Welcome back, Annie.
Mine's
much nicer.
get the band back together. So, just because this has been a huge issue since I've been on the committee, there are
Yeah,
just a
every
few
year.
things that, and like Carol said, there's no consensus.
No.
But what we've found, at least since we sat here a while ago, this is just my perspective, Anne has her perspective. We started like 6 years ago looking at before Labor Day. Carol said, you know what, we're starting too late.
It was
And
like
it
the
was a
5th or
7th or
6th,
8th.
yeah, something late.
Late like that.
Yeah.
So it made for a long school year. In the past couple of years, we've started after Labor Day because it made sense. It was September 1st, September 2nd.
Right.
And I know that people want a standard policy regarding the start of school, but really the only reason you're voting on it tonight is to tell the union whether you're going to start before or after.
That's one of the big parts, yeah.
That's really,
That's a legal reason.
that's why you're doing it. And we always had discussions about heat versus June and August. Like, what's hotter? Is it June? Is it August? And we're in New England, so you could snow
You
in
never
June.
know.
And we started school 1 year in August, and we had a string of 90-degree days. So you could have the same in June. It's just, you don't know that. But I think the bigger issue is the end of the school year, like you said. This year, we're ending on June 23rd, assuming no snow days, which is late, there's no question. But that includes 4 professional development days and 10 days at Christmas, not including the 3 weekends. So I looked at the calendar, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I looked at area towns, and I said, okay, give me a frame of reference, what everyone else is doing. I'm not saying what everyone else does is what we should do. I've never thought that. But I looked at Newburyport, Triton, Pentucket, Ipswich, and Masco. Only 2 schools started before Labor Day this year, and that was Newburyport and Pentucket. However, everyone's getting out earlier than us, the 13th to the 20th, which I thought was really interesting because, again, only 2 schools were before Labor Day. So the difference is in 3 areas. The start date, Triton and Ipswich started on the Tuesday rather than the Wednesday, so you pick up a day. Christmas break, everyone returned on January 2nd, so you pick up 2 days. And professional development.
Not this year, everybody was
Well,
out.
it's-
but-
Everybody was out.
Yeah, but that's
I'm
not,
just telling you,
that's not, yeah, but
everybody
that's,
was
that's a fluke,
But I'm
that's a
keeping-
weather
But
issue.
everybody was
I'm
out.
trying to go apples to apples,
Yeah.
like
Triton has less professional development than we do.
There's-
A lot of them do.
everyone does.
And they're not in the year.
No, they do half days.
Which I don't,
I think they do
So-
half days.
So the professional development days, the number during the school year, 0 to 2. And so the thing to keep in mind is that we're late getting out. I will never argue that. But
Part of that is all those factors when you add that in. During Christmas, Carol requested that we do a 2-week break, and I don't know why. It was either the administration or the teachers that wanted it. We agreed as a committee. I think we
Right.
voted 5-0 for it. So that was.
Wednesdays
And
are
that was
tough.
revisited several
Wednesdays.
times,
And we looked-
though,
yeah,
because
we
a lot
had-
of people weren't
We
happy.
had lengthy
It
discussions,
was.
but that added 2 days onto it. Typically, we've had 3 PD days. This year we went to 4 for the teacher evaluation model.
But we've always had 4, they've always been paid for 184 days.
Okay. However, when you look at the surrounding towns, is 3 days too many? I even went and I said, okay, these are just the surrounding towns. What's the top school in Massachusetts doing, based on the Boston Magazine? And they did. It was
What school was that?
Dover Sherborne, and they did 1 during the school year. They didn't list out all the half days.
I was gonna say, a lot of places do half days.
But
And that was a question I had.
and
Yeah.
Why don't we?
but
Because
so
they're unproductive.
Why?
By the time kids get out, the teachers have lunch, you sit down to do PD, you got an hour and a half, 2 hours if you're lucky. It's not as productive as a full day. It just isn't.
it's just interesting though that we're the only one that has twice as many as.
It's not good for
Everybody
class
else.
visits.
I'm not saying what we should do is what everyone does.
So I want to just, can I weigh in, or I don't want to?
Yeah, no, let me just do my
I'll
last
let you
one.
finish, go ahead, let
So
you
I think
finish.
the things to consider to end the school year earlier, because
Right.
I think that's the
what
only
people-
thing that
that's
everyone
what-
can
That's
seem
the
to
goal, yeah.
put their hands on. Half days for professional development, hold the professional development the week before Labor Day or when you come back to school. And during Christmas break, just cut out, like this year will be another question.
Yeah.
Just allow 8 days instead of 10.
Well, this year it'll be Friday.
Right, so
Christmas
if you
is-
go to school on Monday and Tuesday and then return
On
on
Wednesday. I thought it was-
Wednesday's
Wait,
Christmas Eve.
Yeah,
No,
Christmas is a Thursday.
Oh, I thought you
Christmas is
said
Thursday.
it
So you
was
go Monday and
Friday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, we would have always planned on that,
Yeah.
Monday and
But
Tuesday.
it was the flip of last year. Like we should have gone back on the second.
Thursday, Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday.
Did your
Right,
research
but
come
this-
up with anything
We
on
would've had
the,
snow
on the
days.
vacation
Well, we
of
would've had snow days, but
February
that-
and
right.
April?
Everyone does
Everybody has
February
them.
and April.
Yeah.
Everyone does
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
That, I'm just telling
Yeah,
you.
I know.
And that,
It's just a question.
Just telling
I
you.
want-
Get rid of them.
I
The rest of
lived-
the country does not do that. I grew up in
lived through
Chicago
that.
and we never
I
had
lived
this.
through that in
We
Greenfield.
had March.
The
You have
superintendent
March, right,
had
that part
kids
of
in
the country
college.
does.
So he said, I'm going to change the school calendar and I'm gonna have a week in March when the colleges are off.
Yeah. People flipped.
You could not imagine the daycare providers that were having a fit because it impacted their, the YMCA.
Yeah.
And then, there's a certain natural break, so people were sick longer. And remember, the people who have the 1 week break are usually the colleges or the private schools, but they also have a shorter school year,
Yeah.
significantly shorter school year.
But the 2
Where-
week
is this
holidays,
April?
Carol, is New England. The rest of the country does not do February and April.
Well,
Yeah,
because
everyone-
many of those
They
do
have
year-round
environment.
schools, which is a very
But even
different
those that
schedule.
don't, I mean,
Went back.
But and
where
then
I
yeah,
grew up, there's no such thing, and there still isn't. There's still March
Oh, that's
in
interesting.
Chicago.
Yeah, in
But
Florida
in
does. Just
behavioral, they tried that. They went to the march, and everyone hated it. They didn't like it at all, and then they went
Change
back.
is hard.
I
don't
think
think
that would be.
that's
I
the
think that
issue.
would be a
That's
bigger
radical.
issue. But
It's
I
not
think
the
the other
issue.
thing to think about is going to school the Tuesday after Labor Day rather than Wednesday, because many schools.
Oh, I know, many,
A
But
lot-
you have to have the
But
teachers
so
have
Labor Day is
the data.
9/1,
They can
go
do it.
back to school on Tuesday instead of
Yeah.
Wednesday.
9/2,
But I think we
that's-
do have, isn't that?
No, we always go back Wednesday.
They always go back
But
Wednesday.
Okay,
Always
but
was.
wait a minute, I'm just trying to follow that. So, you're talking about Labor Days on Monday,
Start school Tuesday.
right, and the reason that was not the case is that's the day that all the teachers come back.
You might have to. I'm
that
just.
on Friday.
I'm trying to
Come
think
back
of
early.
ending with the end goal of getting out of school.
Well, the
early.
teachers have the same perspective as the parents do, right? I mean, the teachers look at Labor Day is,
Yeah, the
Is
the
the-
last
yeah.
hurrah.
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's not impossible, but I think that would
Well,
raise
if they
that
have to go back
question.
early for PD
So,
anyway, what's
I
the
really
difference?
wanna-
Don't go back for PD
But
early.
maybe you should.
When?
I wanna,
If you
I
go
wanna,
back.
I
At least a
really
day,
would like to
one
weigh
day,
in on
just
this.
one day.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
really want to weigh in on this. I really think that at some level, I mean, just like with the turf field, you can't have everything.
Right.
We really, this district is working so hard to meet the needs of the students in this district, and that means that the teachers need to be treated with respect. Their needs need to be also brought into into the conversation, their need for professional development, their need for support, and their need for a summer break as well. I think all of that has to weigh into the conversation. And so we may not be able to have what the other school districts have.
No, I'm not saying get rid of professional development. That is absolutely not my message. But when you look when you start saying everyone else is getting out earlier, you just want to break down the factors and say
Why?
Right, absolutely.
And so when you look at
But to
where
say
people who are
they
getting out
don't do
earlier
as many
start in
professional
August.
development days, to say, well, one of the things we could do is not do as many, if we say, one of the
no,
reasons
we're
they.
saying just move them.
We're saying
I would
change,
never
move
say
them
Move them.
front end.
But
Front end or
but
half
I
day.
really don't think we'll get as effective professional development for our teachers, which will translate into less effective teaching, less effective outcomes for our students if we front end. That's
And
that's
did you
my
research,
take on it.
like,
Not-
full,
yeah,
the
but
full
not
day
necessarily.
PDs or
Only
fully
full,
intact?
2 days.
only full day.
Okay.
We have one day in the,
Professional,
in the
well,
draft.
Only
still
ones
around
that would
when we're gonna
impact
start in
Okay.
August, we,
So Ann's
It's become
point is
PD
a
days.
good one here.
That's
What
why
she
we can't
researched
go
was
earlier.
only the days and PD days that would impact the calendar. So if they have a full day, that would impact the calendar.
Right.
They may have half days every
Many
month.
districts do half-day Wednesdays.
Half day Wednesdays.
Yep.
I
So,
mean, again, they
Or
are good
weeks
college
before.
visit days, just 2 in the fall are really important college visit days, otherwise the kids are,
we're talking about for a
Missing.
half-day PD.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're missing school to go
When I was
visit
in
a
Greenfield,
college.
they had half-days every Wednesday when I was a teacher.
right, some districts
And,
around here do.
and honestly, I can say that there were years when that made a lot of sense to do. There were other years when it was like, there's really, you can only do so much PD. And then the other factor was Wednesday was always, as a teacher, a very weird day. Because you couldn't really consider it a real day because you only had, a couple hours with the kids. So you taught Monday and Tuesday, you did this funny thing on Wednesday, and then you did Thursday and Friday. So again, that's the experience that
So
I
you're finding
had.
that Wednesday wasn't really an effective day for the
Every
kids?
Wednesday's a lot of time,
Yeah.
for PD, but it's also a lot of time off for kids and families. If
You
you,
I
don't
was
need to
thinking
do
like
it every-
once a month.
Yeah, like
Right.
you can do
One
it.
Wednesday a month,
yeah,
not a,
right.
I don't know anyone, your district did every Wednesday?
Every-
Well, I think
Wednesday.
Hamilton does every Wednesday,
Yeah, they do.
and they've
There
done
is-
that for years.
I think Bedford does that too,
Really?
or every other.
My
Both
husband went to
considered
school in
very
Hamilton,
good.
they did it when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And they still do it now. So, that sounds to me like a lot, and I think parents would probably not find that to be that convenient, especially working
It's,
parents.
and
every
it's not
Wednesday.
something you have to decide now, but it's
No,
just an
just something to
option.
think about,
Like, yeah, because these districts these are the only, it's 0 to 2 impacting the
Right.
calendar.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get a little more research on, what local districts do for PD in terms of how many half-days they have, so then at least we'll have
Yeah, so-
all of that
but-
information together.
There was
But
just
that-
another thing
but
I
Ann
wanted to
had-
bring up, as far as the starting before and after. When you look at, and Pam's talking about going on college visits for those kids, you also have to look at all the kids that play fall sports at the middle school and the high school. Those fall sports seasons don't start when school does. Those kids have to be back a week,
right.
sometimes more than that. Sometimes they do non-official
That's
training,
right.
the illegal captains trainings, those kinds of
So that
things,
pushes that back.
So those families who are going, now you're starting on the 20-something of 25th, 26th, 27th of August, those families now not only are losing their last week of August, but they're now having to cut everything else short, and with the younger kids to be back a week and a half before that, because the kids are required to be there for their athletic teams,
That's true, I'm one of those families, yes.
as am I. But it impacts the elementary kids too, because the camps, like you said, for the working families, the camps may not go that long. So, it's a trade-off, but I think that there's a lot of different perspectives, but the people that I spoke to today, and there were a lot of them, the 4 that said they would rather it start before didn't even realize that this year it's the 1st. And when we first started this 6 years ago, we brought it up because it was late. And we always said it was something we revisit every year because the calendar changes. So to make a policy, always one or the other, doesn't make any sense based on the calendar.
Yeah, I
Dover
agree.
Shorehorn
I don't
says
think
on
we
their
have-
calendar, the school committee will revisit this every day and adjust based on, adjust the start of school based on holidays, in the year.
Yeah.
Because that includes Christmas too, and I think it was Dover although they started before Labor Day, they had Rosh Hashanah off.
Right,
So
a lot of
that-
towns do get Yom Kippur
Yeah,
and Rosh
they do,
Hashanah off
yeah.
as well.
So that further muddied it, but
Some
they
get
didn't.
full day on,
Good Friday. Yep.
we do half day.
So it's all little things, but I think if you break down the pieces and say, these are the things that are impacting it, how do we change it, or how do we?
I mean, I think people
Adjust.
mainly just wanna get out earlier in June. They don't wanna go to the end of June, which I,
No, yeah,
Right,
nobody wants
last
that,
year's-
but
yeah,
a lot of
last
people
year
don't
was
wanna
too
start
late.
before
Right.
Labor Day either. Especially when it's, Labor
When
Day
it's-
is
yeah.
September 1st.
Well, that was my thought when I saw that it was September first. I'm like, if we go back before, that has, and then our kids get out as late as they do. Now, we haven't had any snow days yet. Right? Right, which I'm sure, you know.
Knock on that
this
wood.
year is a good year not to have
But
them.
it's gonna be like I think it was 8 or 9 weeks that they will have off. If we go back before.
Right, people are talking about a very short summer.
Right.
I really, I think that discussion of, is it before or after, it's just not a very useful discussion. It's really, Labor Day shifts, like, why base it on Labor Day? I
Is that because this
Oh,
is
because
driven
that's
by the
the summer.
union, and the union needs to hear?
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I
they
understand
have-
that.
have
No,
to-
Yeah, that's why you're
I-
saying, that's why you're talking about it
actually was
tonight.
not
But I
under the
don't think-
impression that we were not going to even vote today. I was under the impression that this was gonna be initial discussions. I specifically heard initial discussions.
By January 30th, you have to let the union
But
know.
No, by January first, we have to
Yeah.
let
Oh,
the
it was
union know.
January 1st?
I've asked them for a little
And
extension.
it is difficult to make a
Because
decision
we-
about.
always
it
done it
Don't
Thirty
always
after
hit,
without
we don't
the
always
rest of
hit
the
that,
calendar.
right.
Well, and because you're under the gun, and because
Exactly.
Labor Day is early, you have to look at both sides of the coin, I guess.
Right.
But, knowing that if you wanna go forward and go backward from June, maybe then next year's the time to start doing that, because you don't have enough time to do it now, it sounds like.
Right.
But my personal perspective is if it's before the 4th, start after. If it's after the 4th, start before.
I say always start after.
Mr. Lucia has a
And
Comment.
I just
Ann has
want
always
one-
been consistent.
There's a million reasons, and I really don't want to get in the middle of it, but there's one that is so important that hasn't come up yet.
MCAS.
Please don't say MCAS.
MCAS and AP testing are on fixed dates. And schools that start before Labor Day get a week more of preparation for those tests, period.
But then you pull out for Kiev, and you pull out for PD, and you pull out for a lot of other things, though.
field
And
trips
Christmas.
and
Well,
other
Christmas
things.
for 2 weeks. I mean,
That
You'd be
doesn't
surprised how many
affect
people love
everybody,
that.
that affects
That's interesting.
a small amount of kids. So,
well,
I'm
don't you
just,
think it only affects a small amount of kids who need that extra week? I mean, when you really
I think
about
everybody benefits from that time, so.
Benefits, yes.
I'm not saying that that's the determining factor, I'm just wanna put that out on the table on the menu of things that you guys are considering.
Peter, is that also the same with when next year it's falling on the 1st of September?
The MCAS date is always fixed wherever they fix it. So, and it's in March, and in April, and in May,
Yeah.
and the beginning of June, and the AP tests are at the beginning of June. So when you have snow days and things like that, that hurts us. So,
Right, if we've done a comparison though of the schools that started before and say us that started after, and we compare our AP testings, like, would we see a significant
no,
difference?
because that's not apples to apples.
That's
I mean,
not-
there's different teachers, there's different
Kids.
kids, there's different curriculum.
What about if we went back and looked at our kids? Cause we have,
See what years they did better on this.
right, like we have gone back before and
Still
after.
depends on the kids.
So, well, I'm
Every-
just saying-
every grade is
Population taking
different.
AP tests,
And it is a
so
small population.
It's a very small population.
It's true.
Under 100 probably.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, definitely.
Well, so
Yeah.
100.
Yeah, but everybody's taking MCAS.
Whether they want it or not.
I think the goal is to get out
The-
earlier in June. I think when
Yes,
you,
that is the goal.
when you get like the first 2 weeks, when you get past like the 14th, then people start to get a little anxious. You start getting into the week of the 20th, then you start going into the week of the 22nd, 23rd. It's like,
But then you also wonder how productive that time is.
Well, different people will disagree with us, but I think every educator in this room will tell you it is less productive in June than it is going back in August or early September.
But the thing to remember is you can get out earlier in June by making adjustments to what you do throughout the year.
Understood, but there have been discussions over the years with, you know, maybe questioning whether or not that's truth, that, you know, getting out in June later, you know, is harder on the kids and the teachers, and the kids are ready to be out sooner.
Well, it's
So-
interesting because Triton and Ipswich start after.
You know,
Labor
I
Day.
have to, I'm gonna weigh in on
Triton
this.
has less PD.
So before my daughter was in school,
But we don't know
up
how
until
big
she was
these are.
5 or 6,
I added her
we
all up.
joined the Bradford Swim Club every summer.
Mhm.
You could not go into that pool in June. I'm sorry, it's an unheated pool.
Oh, it's too cold.
And the kids would come out with blue. I mean, I remember taking her to swim lessons, and even early July some years, you know, those blue lips that she had coming out of that pool. It to me, so if it's a weather thing, like I
It's
don't.
not a weather thing. It's a, in some ways, it's a
Psychological.
psychological.
Entirely
And listen to one of the
psychological.
students, they'll tell you, it's harder
Darn,
in
Brian,
June to
what-
keep kids interested.
What's your take on it?
My take is that, well, there's an element that no matter what date we set the end of school at, 2 weeks or so before, everyone's gonna be like,
It's tough.
school ends in
Everyone's
2
done.
weeks, independent of the weather. I think days in August by far are more productive than days in June, regardless of the weather, because people are in the back to school mentality. So they're more motivated to be working hard. I think most of the years I've been in school, we've started past Labor Day. The year we started before Labor Day, people were complaining about starting early, so that was an element there. But there is year after year complaints from students about how they're always the last students to get out relative to all of their friends in local districts, and that makes it a little frustrating for them. I mean, I know you talked about like half days for professional development and stuff, and in Ipswich, I know they end every single Thursday. They end school an hour or two early. I'm not sure if it's for professional development.
Early release.
But I think the idea of that psychologically for students, like having half days on a fixed schedule that are relatively frequent, I think that's appealing to them, especially if we introduce it next year or in a later year, because students are going to look at it as a privilege they are gaining. So I think psychologically for students that is positive.
I'm glad I asked you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear the student perspective.
Yeah. Everyone has different perspectives, but I mean, the ultimate thing is no matter what date we set the end of school at, 2 weeks before, people are going to start losing motivation. So you just have to consider if weather is enough of an issue, which I think it is an issue because we happen to be taking final exams in that time period, at least in the high school. So that's a little annoying. And then I know in the third floor of the middle school of the building, it's problematic because of less air conditioning. The heat there is actually, it's a little ridiculous in right when school starts and towards when school ends. It's kind of unbearable.
Especially in the middle school, right?
Yeah, and like students are more tempted to violate dress code because they're not going to want to be too warm. So I don't know.
Thank you, Ryan.
Well, it'd be interesting, because I do know several families that take vacation the last week of August. And
Yeah.
regardless of when we start, they still do it. You know, they say.
There
So
you
it'd
go.
be interesting to see, like, the attendance rate on that week when we do start before Labor Day.
I think we looked at it.
I do
We
think.
did look at it a couple years
Before
ago.
I think I was on the committee,
Yeah.
I remember talking to somebody and I thought they said that they looked at that. You know, I actually asked the administrators to send me an email just giving me their academic take on it. And it was very interesting because I always looked at it as a mom's perspective. What's convenient to me and my family, what's convenient to my peers and their family, you know. So it was very interesting to see the academic side of it, and I 100% respect everything that they said on it. But I still just have a hard time.
Which was, are you gonna share it with us?
Sure.
Which were the points that were made?
Do you guys mind if I do that? I'll just briefly, just, bullet some things. Let me just get on there. Pam looked at it right before the meeting. I didn't forward it along because I was the open meeting law and stuff. Okay. So, Peter and Heidi pretty much were talking about, like what Peter had just said, the dates for the MCAS and the testing. Well, getting out the week earlier in June, more flexibility, doesn't jeopardize our vacation with snow days. The graduation was also, the kids get to graduate along with the other communities, because I do know our community does graduate usually.
So much later.
Yeah, a week or two after other towns do. The weather, it's hot in the middle school especially, AP and MCAS on a fixed date. First week is a little disruptive with all the beginning of the year routines. It's great to get those out of the way prior to.
Doesn't matter what the.
Mike Murphy, I appreciated what he had said. As a district, we're eventually gonna reach a tipping point. We can't keep limiting days for preparation and still maintain impressive scores. I definitely, can see where he's coming from with that. Takes, the more time we have for students to prepare for MCAS and AP testing, the better chance they have of performing better. Donna had just mentioned that she had heard from a lot of parents that it was gonna be a shortened summer. So she had said that that was pretty much the feedback that she was getting. And Joe Patella pretty much talked about like the survey that we did. And he had said, well, with the respondents that we got last time, it was overwhelming for the amount of people that said before. Just to point out, it was 622 people that took the time to take that, 70% said before. Since the Connect Ed message the other day, I think, it was all over the place. In the beginning, we were getting a lot of people saying before, but then all of a sudden,
I think people
Like,
look at their
I did not realize
Right. I
that this
think
year
this
it was
is-
the
right.
first, including a teacher that I spoke to today
I
at a
think
game
people
who said
looked at their-
absolutely before, and I said, this year it starts on September 1st
Yeah,
is Labor
which
Day,
is
and she
all.
said, oh,
Yeah.
then maybe after.
I think what happened is people might have looked at their calendars for this year. I think if Labor Day is September 1st and you're saying we're gonna go back to school August 23rd, I think a lot of, I just,
We didn't say
Just
August
one point.
23rd.
Six.
You get out the just one little thing. You get out the 23rd, and if you had gone back, say 3 days earlier before Labor Day, that would have put you at the 17th.
Right. When we looked
So,
at it.
which is somewhat interesting because it's not the earliest for the area schools. It's actually second to latest.
Oh,
So I
back
think
before
that's-
Labor Day.
But that's
If
back
you went
in
back
the
before
ballpark
Labor
where
Day.
people don't get panicky.
Right.
You
So I
know.
think the thing to think about is the other issues you've got playing into it.
And I just like to point out for the survey, the question is, would you prefer to begin school before Labor Day each year and get
Getting
out
out
of
early.
school earlier in June? So the question, is like, well, for every year, that's like not taking into consideration the calendar.
it's the earlier in June
I mean, I
that
really,
people
I respect it was
want. I really-
overwhelming,
I agree
70%,
with you, Carol.
but the way the question was phrased, it's,
They wanna get out, I think people wanna get out earlier in June, and I think that's a
Definitely.
good way to look
I
at
think
it.
that they do, because a lot of people
That's
do
what they're
travel
saying.
and enjoy their last bit of summer,
Yeah.
families.
I'm one of those families, like, I don't like to go back till
I
after
think the
Labor Day,
weather's better in
personally.
August.
I'm not back
And
in
I-
time to Labor Day. So.
I'm really happy to have 2 weeks off at
Regardless of
Christmas
when the
time,
school
and
day
it
starts.
doesn't bother me to
Regardless.
get out late in June.
They missed.
I mean, I really, appreciate all the responses from
I know.
from parents in the community, and I think we've covered the points they made. They made very good points, which were really helpful, but, they were speaking about the camps and, you know, that June is too hot, and that the professional development days could be best before Labor Day. They wanted to get out earlier in June. August is beach weather, longer summer is best for construction. Somebody took into account the construction at the Pembroke.
That'll factor in next year.
Let's see, because people want to take vacation the last week of August, although we used to take vacations the last week in June.
You know,
But-
I would like to, are we voting tonight? Or
We'd
is
like
that-
to.
So, I would like to say, I mean, from my perspective, that I don't think professional development is negotiable. I think that the way this district does professional development, given the intense way that the time and energy that is devoted to looking at data in order to improve student performance, that I have felt, my feeling of being on this committee is that the professional development has been structured in order to meet the needs of the district as those needs are presented in the data. So I don't think that that's negotiable. I think that full-day professional development is important for teachers, and that cutting those full days to half days, I think, is detrimental to both the students and to the teachers. That's my take on it. I don't think it's useful to talk about before or after Labor Day. I think it's important to look at the calendar. I think would be nice to end earlier in June, and to take into consideration how many days of instruction, how many days of professional development do we need, what holidays do we have to contend with, and then select our start date from the school year based on that information.
Carol, what do you think?
I don't know, you know, I think there are a lot of good points that are made. You know, I think it's interesting to me that Eastern Mass, in this particular area, is the only place I've ever worked where it's not a fixed, we're starting before Labor Day. I don't know why. I think maybe the tourist industry, people, I don't know, there's a different psyche around that out here. You know, I think the way we've done it in the past, when we've had, you know, gone back early, because it's Labor Day, is early. You know, we've got out at a reasonable time. One year we had 11 weeks, which was lovely. But, you know, it is, you know, many families have said to me, I would just like you to decide one way or the other, because it's really hard for us every year to plan. If you just say, going before Labor Day, for the 3 days before, and everybody knows you're doing it, then it is what it is, right? And you're always getting out probably that week of June 15th-ish, pretty much consistently. PD days, I mean, I'm willing to talk with the administrators about that. I think parents will find it more disruptive to have the half days than they will the full day, just because, you know, you have to deal with daycare, you know, you have to, parents who work have to worry about what their kids are doing for the afternoon. That can be tricky too. We have after school and before school programs for our young kids, so that's okay. But for middle school and high school kids, you know, some parents may have some trepidation, you know. So, you know, I don't know. You know, I mean, it's September 1st. It is a short summer this year. You know, I can see it. But, you know, I would love to believe that at some point we could get, because right now what's happened is we started, we're going late, right? So then September 1st comes and it's unusually short. But if you were to get into a cycle either before or after Labor Day, then that evens itself out, right? So you have about an 8 or 9 week summer, most summers. It's just just varies, you know. I mean, we're not used to going to school August 26th or August 27th or August 28th. So it's hard for us to imagine what that's going to be like. But when the districts that have done it, just becomes common practice.
Of course it does.
So it's always hard to make a change if you're going to make a change.
I'm not a fan. I mean, I hear what you're saying of like having that either we start before or we start after, having that clearly defined. I'm not a fan of that.
Right.
I do think that perhaps a healthy compromise on that would be for us, for the school committee to say, this is going on our agenda early in the school year, September, October meeting. We will set the calendar for next year. A, so that we can meet the union deadline of January 1st, and B, so that parents will have ample time to plan for the coming year.
Right.
That's perhaps the one place where we have fallen down, is that we've put this discussion off until January, and so that does make it harder for people who want to plan. But if we have this discussion off, September, October, so that we can release that start
right.
date early to the community, then perhaps that could take some of that pressure off to have a policy that says we either start before or we start after.
See, I've never had a parent say to me they want it consistent. They either want it before or after.
Mhm.
So it's interesting
Yeah,
that you
that-
say that a
that's-
lot of people, I've
that's
never
what
had
prompted
somebody
the-
say.
That's what prompted the question
Yeah.
of, do you, because
Right,
people
I
said,
understand
just decide, for God's
Right.
sakes.
I do
No,
think
but
it's
if-
more the calendar, how it falls.
I
Because I
agree.
agree, I heard a lot of people say, I didn't know it was the first.
September 1st, right.
And they felt very differently about it.
Yeah.
Once they knew
So,
that.
you know.
I have one more question. Has the union expressed preference, ideas, the teachers as a group?
Okay,
Yes,
Mike, you're on.
Mr. Murphy.
I think that by and large, we agree with what Peter was saying earlier, and the idea, if we could start earlier, the better. But the point that you're making as far as trying to establish some kind of finite ending date, that might be good. I think one of the things we're dealing with, in addition, is that there are a number of professionals who have ongoing educational opportunities and things like that. They get enrolled in courses. And in past years, there have been professionals who, they enrolled in a course months prior, and now all of a sudden, because of snow dates or whatever it may be, they're looking at a conflict between I have to go to school and I have a class, and what's going to happen. So that's part of it. But like a number of people said, change can be difficult. I think that if the holiday runs late, it's probably best to go early. If the holiday's early, well, maybe there's a time we can go after. So.
The
I'm sure
academic achievement is
I
best
mean,
served
personally,
by-
where I stand, as I mentioned to Ms. Linares, is that
After, I mean.
because of MCAS, because of AP, as a teacher, there are a number of days where students just aren't in. Whether it's peer mentors, field trips, band, chorus. So there's a set number of dates. And I think by and large our test has been pretty successful in past years. As a teacher, you're giving me a certain number of days to prepare, and if we just keep taking more and more days to expect those same results, it could get tricky, So I know that there are some people that they enjoy their family time. I respect that.
I do too.
There's some people that have a financial commitment, whereas maybe they have a house in the Cape, something like that, and they just want to have as much time as they can at their house, So, to a certain degree, I could understand that, but it's tough. We have so many constituents. We're thinking
That's
of parents.
right.
We're thinking of
That's
students.
I know.
I think
Yeah,
everybody's
it's
trying their
hard.
best. Everyone really is trying their best. So
Yeah.
we'll work it out.
Yeah, you're-
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're never gonna get 100% consensus, never.
I would be very happy with a motion that said we will end no later than, we will shoot to end no later than the second week of June in any given year, right? Whatever the end of the second week of June is, and we will work back from that and to determine our start.
Well, looking at
That works great for
Well,
next
you
year,
made
but
a
that's not what
motion.
you can
You're
do
making
now.
a motion.
Floating a
But
motion.
I'm just looking at this in here, and it looks to me like this is a recommendation, what it would look like if we started before.
Right, 8/26.
And the last day of school would be June 12th,
June 12th.
which is a Friday.
Yeah, at the end of the
And-
second week of June.
But that's starting before,
no
that's
snow.
starting
That's starting August
on
26th.
August
Okay,
26th.
that's
Tuesday,
what I'm
correct?
saying, that's what I'm saying, if that's the,
And then it's going.
Again, any place I've ever been, it's been, the week before has been Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But here, if you remember, to sell it, because we anticipated that the concern would be the long Labor Day weekend, we went Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because remember the committee didn't want to go less than 3 days, sorry. So we took the Friday off, right?
So is that what your plan is?
Well,
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
That's what this says.
But that doesn't, I understand that, but if it, you know, that defeats the whole purpose. If, you know, you're selling it at this point,
Is that
you
what
know,
it says?
if
Yeah,
you're
it's a day
trying to
off.
sell it based on what, you know, the administration and the unions have said is, you know, their number of days before their set tests, why would you do that? That should be your selling point.
So this would be
Tuesday,
Tuesday,
Is
Wednesday,
there a
Thursday,
reason-
Friday,
An
Saturday, Sunday,
extra
Monday
day off at the end of a week that they're in school doesn't mean anything, because most people aren't going away for Labor Day weekend.
If
That's when they're coming
already
home.
up here for 3 days.
They're coming home.
Well, the few people that, when they talked to me about this in the email, I said, well, would it be, because they said you should have a, like, consistently, don't do the, what they say, consistent the first week, like a full week. And I said, oh, would you feel, so you're preferring to not have the Friday? And she said, no. They said, no, Friday, we need the Friday because of the long Labor Day weekend.
Well, if you notice though, Carol, several of those emails did indicate that they felt that that first week back to school before Labor Day
Yeah.
was a non-productive week.
Mm.
They
Well,
felt that the
I'm
kids
not
went to
sure-
school
I'm not sure where they get
for
their
3,
information.
well,
because
that's what
I
they
would
said.
argue-
But that's what
But that's
they're
what we
saying.
said, we wanna
Understand.
bring in all points. They
Understand.
said that
I did read
Tuesday,
that.
Wednesday, Thursday, the kids would go back to school, then they're out again for 4 days, so they feel like that first week is a nothing week, which I think is why a lot of people that
Go on
plan,
vacation.
they still feel like they can still go away.
Well, I can tell you, as an educator, having the opportunity to introduce routines in the first 3 days, and then the next week, you know, it's 4 days, and then it's 5 days the following, these kids are tired, the teachers are tired, everybody's tired getting into the new schedule.
But start
No, I
Tuesday after
understand
Labor
that.
Day.
I'm just saying
and
that this
then-
is
Go
what
4 days.
And
several
then, yeah,
emails
go
said
4
though.
days. Go 4 days.
I'm
I
not
wouldn't
saying
have-
I agree with
I
that,
wouldn't
I'm
have
just
a-
saying
oh,
that's
I
what the
understand.
email said.
I wouldn't have a problem with that, but that's how we got to the Friday, if you remember.
You know, I
Friday
don't like to
before.
ever hear that
Right.
people are saying that any week in school is unproductive.
Right.
But
Oh,
that's,
no, I read it, I saw it. If they saw their
Well-
poor kids falling asleep on the desk at 1
Right, and
o'clock,
then-
they might understand it from a different perspective.
well,
Let's have a crack at it.
okay, do you wanna make the motion?
So, we don't, Laura,
Sure.
so it sounds like
So
we
what do you-
don't
I'm
have
just gonna make the
a
mo- you
draft
don't have to vote.
calendar
What are you gonna
starting
make the
after,
motion?
right?
What motion are you gonna make?
The one
Make
that's-
So I'm
what
trying to
she
figure out,
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
we
you
start
can say
after,
no.
what is the
And
last
then
day
make
of
a
school?
different
said?
motion. Unless you wanna make a motion.
You can
Right,
say
so
it.
So if you start after,
Then vote that down.
Alright.
Or, if the motion's to start before, if the motion's written to start
Here's-
before, then you would vote yay or nay.
Right.
And
Right.
change
Or
it.
you just make the
Redo it.
motion to start
So-
after.
Well, that's what I'm saying, or do it, like, why take that one, you know, go ahead.
Well,
yeah, don't take that motion if that's not what you want.
Well, we
Well,
don't
this
know
is
what we want,
what I was
that's what
gonna
we're
support.
gonna find out.
Oh, okay. Okay, then make that motion.
but if I'm, motion to approve the 214, 215 school year start date for students grades 1 through 12 is August 26, 2014.
So you're voting for B4.
Well, if it gets,
So what you're doing now is you're suggesting that the chair,
No, he's doing,
He's
You're-
making
you're
a
doing
motion.
the motion.
Somebody has to
Anybody
second
can
it
make the motion.
so
I
it's just
second.
second, you can vote no or whatever,
for discussion,
discussion.
I second that motion.
and then there's discussion.
Did someone want to?
Yeah, but you
If
can
you-
ask for a
you-
discussion now in
you're
case
the
they
chair.
want to discuss that motion.
discussion, anybody? Or go for a vote, I vote nay.
Tell us how you really feel, Barbie. I don't support it either.
Anyone else voting no?
No, I'm voting no.
All those in favor then? Aye.
Aye.
2-2, Pam?
This reminds me of the way the calendar always worked in the past.
I know.
Based
You're gonna
on
vote,
what
or
I
you
said I was
abstain
gonna
or
do.
vote?
That's, if
What
this is our
happens if I
end date,
abstain?
right here.
Then we vote.
Now back.
So the vote fails.
Melted.
Jury.
No, this schedule, if what he just
we've
proposed would start
accomplished
August
nothing,
26th and get us out on
It's
June
good for
12th.
discussion. Yeah, we haven't
Then we can say start.
Okay.
Can we continue discussion? No?
What do you mean, you mean you wanna hear more thoughts?
Fails, and you have to make
or,
You need more, do you want to ask more questions?
Everybody's voting, right?
We have to vote.
I would like to add this, no matter what we do, we're gonna be okay.
All right, so
Thank you, Rob.
so just,
You can abstain.
just
yeah,
procedurally, if
then
Pam abstains,
Yeah,
Yeah.
what
it's
happens?
2-2 tie, right?
Yeah.
And so then I would say you don't have enough votes to, you don't have a majority.
So then the next
Can you
person
make
can make
another
another
motion?
motion.
And
Right.
someone else.
And
can
see
make a
if
different
someone
motion.
slides their vote.
Sure.
Yep.
That's what we do.
I mean,
How many days off would we have at Christmas time?
Well, we haven't discussed that,
If-
but
if-
Christmas
this
falls on
calendar,
a
it's
Thursday.
12.
But again,
According to
but
this
this is
calendar-
not, this is, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
this
this
is not,
is
this is
fine.
not
It's only
approving the calendar.
Right,
This
it's
is just,
only
we
for the
haven't even
beginning.
done all
this
the
is
other
just
calendar.
approving the
Well, see,
start
start
date.
date.
That's all it is.
Why aren't
what
we
sets me
adjusting the
off.
Christmas holiday to try to have that compromise?
No, look at this.
Well, we're only
We
doing the
can, we
beginning.
can do that, but the purpose of tonight,
No,
remember
I
how we do this in
understand
two
that.
parts usually? We do
She has to
the,
vote. We can't have a discussion until she votes.
even
We
if
can't
I-
discuss
Oh, oh.
until you
The vote
vote.
is held for
You need to vote.
so she can abstain though if she wants, right?
Yeah, and then you can discuss again.
Right, I'm gonna abstain, 'cause I want further discussion.
Okay.
I mean, I just, so if we decide to have it after Labor Day, we can still get out June 17th.
Well, that's what
Right.
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
How? How? Because it's 3 days of
Well,
school
because we could
before
change
Labor
the
Day.
professional development days.
Well,
we
it's just
could
3 days, we
do
just
many
add
things.
3 days to the.
Right.
Tuesday after Labor Day and it takes a day off it.
Correct. You
No,
could
the
also
Tuesday-
adjust
Start the Tuesday after
the
Labor
Christmas
Day.
holiday. Right?
No,
Well,
because
this
look
week
at
the
this,
Christmas
look at the,
holiday
look
is
at the Christmas
difficult.
holiday. It goes,
Thursdays.
they're off from Christmas Eve
I don't think we do
until
much more with
till
the
the
Christmas
January fifth.
holiday.
I don't think, you don't wanna go back on the second if it's a Friday, do
Right.
you? That's
Why
really,
can't, no, why can't you go back? No,
When?
on the Thursday.
What if we
No,
had
on the
that-
first,
that's
on
New Year's.
January
Why can't we have a
first?
professional-
New
You wanna
Year's
go
Eve.
back on New Year's Day?
29th of August.
That'd
Why-
go over
Why
big.
can't we have a professional day on the 29th of August? That day, is that contractually not good? Do teachers require 4 days at Labor Day?
See, I think
No.
to
Days
try
off
to
Labor Day
figure
weekend?
out, I think
just
to
have
try to
4
figure
PD
out the
days.
schedule for the year at 20 of 10 is gonna be really hard. And it's our first discussion with it, which I think is a great discussion to have.
Well, see, and I thought it was gonna be the
and I
initial
thi- And I think
discussion.
we should have more of them.
Mike,
But I think there's the opportunity to still play with the schedule. You still will have that opportunity regardless of which way you end
do
up
you
voting.
see an issue with them just continuing this
Not really.
conversation
Well, I mean, you do, but
one more time?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I mean, I'm still,
So I just spoke with Mike briefly, and the union will extend the waiver if you feel you need more time to discuss this or to think about it or whatever. So Pam's concern is you wouldn't have to necessarily take a vote tonight unless you want to take a vote tonight.
Well,
You
the,
could
the-
have it on
well,
the
the
13th.
thing that I have with that, Carol, is that 4 of us are ready to vote.
I know.
So that's
When
my
is the-
concern.
You also have the
When is our
public
next
who have
meeting?
gotten involved.
When
know,
is
I
our
thought
next
there was
meeting,
gonna be-
Carol?
Right.
When is our next
February
meeting?
13th.
I won't be at that meeting. I
Oh,
just
you
need
won't
to,
be.
I wanna just
Go Barbie.
Well,
Maybe we should, no, I mean, no, I'm just saying, I think that,
I mean, I'm hung up on this, on the academic achievement. To me, that's the reason why we're here, is to
well, we're here
promote
for the
that.
betterment of our
Well,
children as a
yes.
whole,
Yes, absolutely.
not only academic wise.
That's correct. Whole child,
Right.
whole family,
Correct.
whole community,
Yep.
yes. All right, somebody wanna move a motion again?
Do we make another motion?
well,
She abstained.
Are you ready to
So-
vote?
So that first motion's dead.
dead, right?
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to begin school for the 2014-2015 calendar on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, any discussion?
I just would like to know, what does that do to the end date? If we begin on the 2nd, what does that do to the end date? And
We can't really discuss the end date because so many things go into what the end date will be. Because as you have voiced your opinion about you not wanting professional development day prior to beginning of school.
I didn't say that.
You did say that.
I said I don't want professional development days stacked
Altogether.
altogether prior to beginning
That's
of school,
correct.
and I don't want them compromised.
But that's your opinion.
Right.
And if we were gonna vote on that, that would be something that all of us would have to take into consideration. So that would change the end
Okay.
of the last day of school.
Right,
So a lot of
absolutely.
factors go into that. So I think what we need to focus on is when are we gonna start the school year?
What worries me about that, Barbie, is
Mhm.
that we really do need a day for the teachers. And I don't know that I think it's fair to say to the teachers, you have to come before Labor Day when everybody else doesn't.
So if we're voting to start
What do you mean- what do you
start
mean?
the calendar on the
When we've
after
started after
Day,
Labor Day,
then we
in the
can-
past.
We've always started on Wednesday.
Okay,
No,
but
wait a
that,
minute, wait a
that
minute,
was
let
my
me think.
motion, that I started Tuesday. If there can be another motion saying
Let me
Wednesday.
just make sure I'm right on that.
I'm looking to add another day so we can get out earlier.
Wait a
I
minute.
don't think that
Right.
Tuesday is,
How did we,
But
so
teachers come back on Tuesday.
teachers come back on Tuesday, but then how did we have 3 days that week?
If we were to go after. Well, if we went after Labor Day, then students would start Wednesday, then go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So
Right,
they would
right,
have a 3-day
right.
week. Right. So.
Can we have professional development days just before Labor Day and students
but
come back
could they,
after Labor Day?
could they come back on the 27th?
Can we do that?
You know, I have to talk about it with the union because that's a complete change in the way it's been done.
So what about if we
I'm
only
not saying it can't be, but
professional
I don't know
development
that I'm gonna
days
commit to that
before
without
Labor
talking to
Day?
them.
Only professional development days before, like, 1 or 2, not stacked too many. And then started the students coming back after Labor Day. Would that option be part of the vote to start everything after Labor Day, or would that option be part of the vote to start things before Labor Day? To start the school calendar before Labor Day?
It sounds like there has to be a detailed discussion to talk
Yeah,
about all
yeah.
the various dates throughout the year and how you could adjust them to
Right.
get out earlier. I think this evening, we just need to figure out before or after.
Right, but if we started before, can we still have the students start after? If we start the school calendar before, so it's basically just professional development days.
Oh, like August 26th, but the kids have off?
But the kids don't come back till after.
Well, then they wouldn't have that, yeah.
Those
they
would be
wouldn't
the
meet
extra
the-
As I said,
Well, we would meet the 180.
Would that, has that ever been?
Yeah, well, I
Start
think
the
that
day
things are
of-
getting
Done in
a
other
little
districts.
confused here,
Do it.
because there's 184 days for the teachers,
Yeah.
and then there's 180 days for the kids. So, whether or not we start before Labor Day for the teachers, I'm just saying, it's possible to do, I just think it would be good practice to have a discussion with the union about that. Cause that's not been done before. I don't know, the same
Right.
whoever said it, somebody said the same arguments that apply to teachers also apply to parents and
Mike said
families.
that, correct.
So, I mean, again, not saying it
But-
can't
but
be
the
done, I'm just
option-
saying, I wouldn't commit to that tonight. as a
What, going
superintendent.
back on the 2nd and then the teachers going back that Friday, is that what you're saying?
No,
Carol's saying she wouldn't commit to that.
I won't commit to the
That's what I'm
teachers coming back
asking.
before Labor Day. If you decide
I'm asking her
that
to
school's
clarify.
gonna begin after Labor Day, I would not commit tonight to say the teachers will come before, because I've not had that conversation with them, and I don't think it's fair. So, but I think where we're stuck is I'm only raising the fact that if you go after, the practice has been to have Labor Day, the teachers come back, then the kids come for the 3 days. And I would prefer that personally, but I would rather find a day somewhere else if you're concerned about ending on the 17th, than to take that day at the start of the school year away from the schools, because there's prep in classrooms that needs to be done, there's prep, departments need to meet. This year, we really noticed a difference because we did training all day the first day. And we didn't have, I don't think, adequate time to get everything organized the way we should have gotten it done.
Carol, can I ask you a question? If we say the official start of school is September 2nd, and that's this Tuesday, the professional development day, so that's the day that teachers come.
Yeah.
Are teachers, in general, teachers have access to their classrooms before that? If they
do.
want to come in and
Oh,
they
yeah,
want
and
to
then,
have their
trust me,
classrooms,
many
they-
do.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
start August first,
Absolutely.
you know, in the classroom.
And that's what I,
But I'm talking about grade levels will meet, principals will have faculty meetings, we'll do these drive-by trainings that we're required to do every year. Donna Straight will meet with all the special ed staff. I mean, those are
things, are you saying you need one full day before the kids
that's
come, or
what we,
two?
no, just one.
Just one.
So if you were gonna start after, for the purpose of discussion, I would say you start school for kids on the 3rd.
On the 3rd. So if the motion is to begin school on the 2nd, that is understood to mean that the 2nd is a professional development day.
No, I made the motion that the kids start on 9/2,
She made
so
that.
you can.
This is
you
just
can-
discussion.
Yeah, that's
You
just
can-
discuss,
no,
that's
No,
what
I
I'm
know.
asking, I'm
You can
just
vote that down
getting-
if you want.
I'm asking for clarification,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
asking
Barbie's
for.
motion is the kids start on the 2nd.
Okay. So has
Which-
that motion
Which
been
would mean that
floated at this point, has it been seconded? And so we're taking a vote on that?
Okay, so I can modify the motion?
Sure.
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to begin the 2014-2015 school calendar year on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2014,
For students.
for students.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you?
I'll say aye, make it unanimous with you guys.
All right.
Not an easy decision.
So then Laura will draft,
Not easy.
Laura will, well.
Draft the calendar.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
ladies. I mean, again, it's late, I don't wanna get into a lengthy conversation, but if people could take a look at this, and if there are points that you feel you'd like to make, I think you need, if you could, email them to me, because I know the administrative team, we're very involved in deciding, you know, what other recommendations we'd make for you in the whole thing.
So now we will be having another vote to finalize everything else,
The remainder of the
the
calendar.
remainder of the
Yes.
calendar.
Right.
So this was an initial vote and now the.
So if
okay.
you feel
We're
Just
not
to
strongly-
clarify the start date, I got it,
Okay.
You don't
Now
have to
the
feel
goal
strongly
is-
about anything in here.
Now the goal is to end, still the goal is.
Sure.
I just wanna say, if this is such a short summer, that I will appreciate those few extra days, because this is gonna be a tough year to, you know.
Well, Margaret's transitioning, yeah.
So I'm appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, you should have weighed in before, it would have made it easier, we could have voted half an hour ago.
So there's so much to consider.
There is, it's never an easy decision.
Easy. Is there more on the agenda?
Well,
Yes.
Yes.
So we're gonna go
subcommittees.
back to,
Put your bag down.
administrative reports we don't
We
have.
don't have any, no.
Okay. Anyone have any questions about the superintendent's information for the committee? No?
No.
Financial report? Nothing?
No.
Okay, subcommittee reports, budget and finance?
We just have a meeting scheduled, we haven't met, what was the date we ended up with?
I think it was
Yeah.
Monday.
This Monday at
Monday.
3:30, one of
Yeah.
those two?
Yeah, and I explained in the notes, you know, why we're not discussing the budget tonight.
Right.
As that really is an essential step, it just hasn't happened, so.
Okay, I'll confirm it. Nope.
Governance? Alana?
We have not met, our next meeting is
February 13th.
February 13th, but I think we're
Right,
gonna
then
have to
before the
change
next
that
meet-
date, because
'cause you
now
can't
I'm
make it.
gonna
Okay, we'll
be away
change it.
that date.
Oh, okay.
We'll change it.
Negotiating subcommittees we haven't met?
But have we got dates scheduled? With the actual units?
February 5th? I think that is it.
Okay.
Public relations, Pam?
We have a meeting this Tuesday morning.
Great.
And we're looking forward to.
Okay.
Looking forward to.
Safety?
always very
Safety,
thoughtful.
we briefly went over a little bit of it earlier, so we talked about, the Pearly School, and, Principal Mayor also requested that the front parking lot be evaluated for flood drainage issues to be fixed if possible this spring or summer.
With regards to that drain, oh, I'm sorry, I just wanted to comment on that.
drainage. What are they for?
Well, I guess it's flooding,
Okay.
yeah, the parking lot is flooding.
Okay.
If something's gonna happen with looking at the parking lot flooding, the scope needs to be broadened. Now would be the time to do it. There are circulation issues there, curbing, whatnot, that should be addressed also.
Yeah, I'm not sure where
Absolutely.
it's flooding, in the parking lot itself.
That seemed to be what, yeah, there are certain
There's a big
spaces
drain.
that are, like, no, I don't know,
Okay,
maybe
I'll
you
ask
could,
Margaret
yeah,
about it.
further ask Margaret about
I
that.
will.
And at the Pembroke, Elizabeth Carroll reported that there are parking problems, partly due to construction workers parking in the wrong areas.
Oh, in Pembroke?
But that's gonna be addressed with Chuck Adams, Chief Beardsley is going to address that.
I hope so, that's been an ongoing problem.
Right. The Pembroke also needs official confirmation that the students playing in the snow are gonna be safe, which is,
You know, I have to get back on touch with that, but
I'm sure they will be.
I know
but-
Donna's was really hoping, she does this whole Winter Olympics thing,
Oh,
that the
yeah.
kids were gonna be able to get to go outside, but, on the playground, but, you know, the problem is now there's not much snow cover.
Right, it's
And
more
it's,
muddy.
and
There's
it's
not
more
much.
muddy.
Oh, yeah, that's not
So,
good.
I I was hoping it was really gonna be
Maybe is
hard
this a
packed,
wellness
frozen.
committee issue, because boy, the kids are not, they're just not
They're-
getting enough physical
Outside.
activity.
Oh, I
It's
know.
awful.
It is, yeah.
Well, I think that's why I said I gotta get back involved with that, because, I'm not sure where the discussion is right now on what the mitigation plan is. I've not heard of one, so I'm gonna check with the OPMs, obviously,
Yeah,
and bring it up at the school building committee, because, you know, I mean, because they're loading that dirt down on that third field, I'm under the impression those fields are not gonna be
Yeah,
be
I mean,
available
It
for
sounds
2
like
years.
the kids aren't gonna, yeah, for 2 years, you can't keep the kids locked up for 2 years, like.
And I don't know, I'm not sure where the septic system project is in terms of when that's gonna start, so I'll
Well,
give
there's
you
a
an
meet-
update on that, I just have to do a little
There-
Yeah, it's
digging on
getting
that.
really
There's
bad.
there's a special meeting for the 28th on the
that with
building
the-
committee to talk about that field on the septic system and.
Oh, good, okay,
So,
when is that,
January
right?
28th?
28th, if, whatever, if
Oh, I
that.
got it on my calendar,
Yeah.
28th sounds familiar
next
to me.
week. It's a special meeting.
Oh, good, then great, then we can do an
Talk about
update
it
on
then.
that at the next meeting.
And lastly, Peter Durkee was reporting that bricks were missing on one of those lower
Yeah, I've
stairs,
seen
those
that at
stairs
the high
that I've
school.
commented on several times that are so
Oh.
dangerous.
I did see
There.
Mike Anderson though have a gentleman, they were looking at it, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering if Mike
Yeah,
called
the pitch
somebody
is all
in.
wrong
Oh,
on
it's
those.
completely blocked off now, you can't use
Oh.
it, which is
Oh.
probably for the best.
So the people
Um,
parking there have to walk around,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
up.
probably up and
but
around.
that's
But
probably
those-
safer.
Those stairs were unsafe before there were
Yeah.
missing
I
bricks, now
know.
they're missing bricks.
Yeah,
they're
it
very-
is
It's
bad.
interesting,
Yeah,
yeah, it was always scary.
always scary. So that's
Okay.
it.
Well, can I ask you a question about, so where does this sort of end up in the checklist of things to do? I
What
mean, so,
checklist of
I mean,
things
well,
to do,
so,
right?
so
Joan-
so you're talking about the, the report and the information about the brick and the stairs and now
Right.
they're dangerous, and that is an issue that we should take serious and should address.
Well, that's one
Well,
of the,
Joan is
Joan-
doing, Joan is
Joan-
handling it.
and that's
Is
one of the
handling
things
that.
on the
Yeah, she's the one
improvement.
who,
Okay, just,
Remember, it was a
On
lot of
Mike's,
money.
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
yeah, so that's how it's now in the hands
It's
of
in
the
the
business
works.
officer.
yeah,
Okay.
if you can, yeah, take a look at it, I would hope that some action will be taken
Yeah.
soon on it.
Yeah.
So that's
Um,
it,
Thank you.
sure.
School building committee?
Basically, the 28th is, this next special meeting coming up to talk about, some minor changes with the fields that they're putting in, and part of what, Carol's talking about that area too, with where they're loading materials now. So it's a special meeting on the 28th.
Right, yeah, they
Where's
wanna
that?
cap it and
Where
all
do you have that? Is
Um,
it here?
Yeah, it is here
is,
now.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
okay.
it'll be third floor.
And Stack met tonight. Rob or I weren't able to be there, but I think we know what the meeting
Yeah.
was about. happened
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah, you got it.
And has there
You
been a
got the
CPAC
gist.
meeting or?
No, there
No.
hasn't, it was
What is it?
canceled due to, it needed to
Weather.
be rescheduled,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And also same could be said for the Crest Gleck meeting, that was also canceled this Wednesday, that will be this
Was
coming
that canceled
Wednesday.
because of the
That
snow?
weather.
The
Snowstorm,
impending
yes,
snow?
yes.
That didn't
That
happen?
wasn't.
The storm that didn't come.
Right. Okay.
I was
Community's
not,
just not us.
I was not unhappy, let me just tell you that.
No, you did a good job,
I
and,
was not unhappy.
yeah, right.
It was so funny, you know, there was a lot of discussion on the email train with the superintendent, you know. I think I'll cancel tonight if I had company. I'm like, you're not getting me. It's gonna be till the morning, because I said, this is way too iffy. And,
Oh, no, I was
then
glad you
other
didn't
people sort of
cancel.
fell in line and said, yeah, it looks like it's gonna be a morning call. And, I think everybody was glad that, they waited.
Well, as I mentioned to Carol, though, the new mayor of Boston, the poor guy,
Oh, yeah.
canceled it,
Yeah.
and he
Well-
was just being raked over the coals on every radio station in the
The
morning.
forecasting was just, I mean, Matt
Yeah.
Noyes said we were
Yeah.
going to get 6
6 to 8 inches.
How did,
Yeah,
inches,
just
he
didn't
didn't
make
even
it
give a
up.
range, it was 6.
It didn't make it up,
And we didn't even get 1.
no?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike.
What a
I feel great
profession to
sympathy
get
for the
paid
mayor of
like
Boston.
that,
To be wrong.
to be wrong. I
That's
mean,
what we talk about all
Yeah.
the time in work. That's
Yeah.
what we wanna do in our next lives.
Yeah.
The meteorologist.
I was talking to Mike
Yeah.
Anderson at 4:30.
Mistakes
And-
oh, because
I
of
was talking-
cleanup.
Yeah, just clean up, and he talks to Peter Durkee for me, but, I
was
said,
no
Mike,
need for
what's going
cleanup.
on? He says, Carol, it's a dusting. I'm like, okay, we're going
Yeah.
on time.
You did a good job with
And all
that.
the surrounding towns were closed. Driving into Boston was like a breeze.
Well, around Boston.
Peabody, Danvers,
Yeah,
Peabody, Danvers, Newburyport.
And they hitting us now.
Yeah, Masco
Yeah,
I
closed.
they
told you,
were
you're the hero
all
or the
closed.
bum with
Yeah.
that decision. There's no way to,
Yeah, Boston
get
was
it right
closed,
every
there was
time.
nothing in
I
Boston.
don't know, I think I was looking around 8 o'clock and very few surrounding communities had said they were gonna close.
I
They're
St.
mostly
John's
South
closed
Shore, they're
early.
mostly South
Newbury,
Shore communities.
Newburyport, because my son was following it on his phone.
Right.
He said, oh, Mom, Newburyport's out tomorrow. I said, okay.
I
And
know.
that, but they weren't. I think she rescinded it. They were in
Oh,
there.
Oh,
we could do
really?
that.
I don't
Yeah.
think they were.
If you do it at night, then sometimes, you can make the adjustment. Parents hate it.
And they have like a
because
Connect
they
Ed
make-
message,
Yeah.
the same as us, that they
Yeah.
can.
that would be
Oh my
tough on
gosh, they
parents.
Of course it would. That's why I don't make the call to
That would be so
even though I
hard.
know
After your
it's
kid
easier
has
for
decided,
parents
I'm
at night.
sleeping in tomorrow. And
Well,
kids
that's
to
what
wake
kids
up.
all say.
Clear.
Can you just ask us so we can stay up late?
Barbie said, it's all over Twitter, that there's gonna be a snow day tomorrow. I said, oh, I hope they're not counting on that. I'm
No, you
sure
did a
I'll be
good job.
very unpopular.
Yeah. Oh, she does an excellent job on that.
Well, that is not the easy decision, let me tell you.
I also heard the delayed openings for
Yep.
the students are very irritating.
Very hard.
The what?
Delayed
Delayed openings.
openings, they'd rather just go at
Yeah.
7:30.
Oh,
I thought, really? You
Yeah,
want to sleep late?
It's,
No.
it's hard, yeah.
They don't like a delayed opening.
I mean, if it stops snowing
You
at
know,
4
a
o'clock.
routine is routine.
Well,
Our
I'm glad it
brains like
worked out
routine.
because of
It's just how
the
human brain
the
works.
scheduling with the
Oh,
midterms.
I
That
was
would have
very
been.
glad too, yeah.
that
Peter
would've
was
been
worried about
a week,
that.
Right. Yeah, so I think the meeting is adjourned, but we do have to make a motion at 10 PM
So
to
moved.
close the meeting.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank
does
you.
anybody want to take these? Oh, you're waiting for PDF, right?
Yeah, I don't wanna take those.
You wanna
I'll
take this,
wait.
Rob?
Well,